Chapter 1992. 1992 World 1992 focused the first wave of attacks. Boom boom boom. 21 figures in the sacred hall released terrifying auras as they floated in the air. With a youth dressed in a fiery red robe as the leader, Yuan Kuei, and the other true dragon sons of heaven followed by his side. They all looked towards the direction of the ocean. Let's go. This time we'll let the entire world know the power and majesty of our soaring sky-treasured palace and the sacred hall. Yuan Kuei's lips curled up slightly, and a cold expression appeared on his face. This time, I'm going to rip off the Dragon King's dragon tendon. I'm going to use his body to make a throne to take revenge. The faces of the several gods of the sacred hall and the Lingxiao treasured palace were filled with malevolence. Buzz. Buzz. The 21 gods moved and immediately flew toward the ocean. In less than 5 minutes, the 21 gods arrived about 100,000 meters in front of the dragon palace. They stared ahead with murderous intent. What a huge dragon palace, it actually gives off such power. Yuan Kuei and the other gods looked through the ocean and stared at the huge and towering dragon palace at the bottom of the ocean. A hint of surprise appeared on their faces. This Dragon King must have obtained a powerful inheritance. Otherwise, it would be impossible for a small earthling to reach this stage in just a dozen years. Now, I even wonder if this Dragon King has obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. A true dragon son of heaven stared at the dragon palace below, his eyes shining. It's really possible. However, he has obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord and hasn't lit the divine fire yet. This is a bit of trash. It shouldn't be the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. If he obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord, he would be even more powerful. An eternal God Lord can shock an entire region. Several figures were talking. All right, who cares what inheritance he obtained? I'll go and destroy them now. Kai Yang stared at the dragon palace and said confidently. Wait, everyone, don't worry. You don't need to attack in the first round. Yuan Kuei waved at Kai Yang and said indifferently. Hey! The first round? The gods looked at Yuan Kuei in surprise, and even Kai Yang looked at him in puzzlement. Hey, everyone, just wait and see. Since the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall have decided to kill the Dragon King today, we must be 100% sure that we will unleash all of our strength and trump card. A hint of madness flashed in Yuan Kuei's eyes. As he spoke, he slowly took a few steps forward. Dragon King, destroy my Lingxiao treasured palace and kill the god of my Lingxiao treasured palace. Today will be the day of your death. Next year, today will be the day of your death. Yuan Kuei stared in the direction of the dragon palace and let out an angry roar. This angry roar resounded throughout the entire earth. His voice could be heard from every corner of the earth. At this moment, it was as if the entire world had fallen silent. Whoosh! Immediately after, the world went into an uproar. What's going on? Did the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall seek revenge on the Dragon King? So fast. They destroyed 6 godly state experts of the Dragon Palace yesterday, and now they're going to cover the entire Dragon Palace. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall are so confident. Hiss! The Dragon Palace just landed on the ocean yesterday, and now the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall are fighting. Everyone was shocked when they heard this voice. Especially in the cities close to the ocean, the experts immediately flew to the seaside. Some of them were bold enough to fly into the ocean. They wanted to watch this vast battle. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. However, at this moment, everyone in the seaside city suddenly heard a whistling sound. The sound was somewhat similar to a rocket launch. Oh my god, look at the sky, that's. Suddenly, an extremely shocking sound came from below. An old man looked at the sky with a face full of shock. Bomb weapons, it's a bomb weapon, and it's even a nuclear weapon that has been modified by a special energy. Hiss. Back when the gods descended, all the bomb weapons were taken away by them. It's said that someone has added the modification of nuclear weapons, which can make the power of the bomb weapons even more terrifying. How many weapons are these? If these weapons were to be thrown on Earth, they could destroy the entire Earth. At the seaside, everyone raised their heads and looked at this scene in shock. Terrifying weapons flew through the sky. There were at least 1,000 of them heading towards the Ocean Dragon Palace. Weapons washing the earth. Shocking. Shocking. This, someone once said that as the most powerful weapon on earth, its attack power is comparable to that of a god. Even if it's only comparable to the attack of a wisp of divine fire god, these thousands of weapons. Some people murmured. No one had expected that the Ling Xiao treasured palace would have such a terrifying weapon. Hey! This is the most powerful weapon on earth. At this moment, the gods around 100,000 meters away from the Dragon Palace were also surprised when they saw Tan Wu flying toward them. That's right. After being modified with demigod-level metal materials, it's even more powerful. Tan Wu whistled in the sky while Yuan Kuei watched this scene with a smile on his face. Although this planet is very weak, it has invented a weapon that's quite powerful. It can be used as the first wave of attack against the Dragon Palace. He continued to speak as he looked indifferently at the bullets that were about to land on the Dragon Palace. It's about to begin. Suddenly, his voice was filled with excitement as a lightning shield appeared in front of him to block the bullets. The first wave of attacks was the bullets. The hearts of the surrounding gods trembled as they stared intently at the bullets. More than 1,000 bullets were about to land on the Dragon Palace. Dragon King, the people from the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the Holy Church are here. I didn't expect them to have so many bullets. The power of the bullets is comparable to the attack of a wisp of divine fire god. The power of thousands of bullets attacking at the same time is not small either. At this moment, in the Dragon Palace, when all the gods from the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the Holy Church arrived, the scouts of the Dragon Palace had already discovered them. However, to the surprise of Wang Xian and Prime Minister Gui, the first round of attack from the other party was actually the Dan Wu. Thousands of Dan Wu were raining down on them. Without dodging, a divine kingdom could be directly destroyed. They really used all their strength. Wang Xian looked at the Dan Wu that was raining down on them from above. A cold expression appeared on his face. Dragon King, with the defense of the Dragon Palace, these bullets won't be able to touch us at all. Prime Minister Gui raised his head and looked at them indifferently. I know. However, since the upgrade of the Dragon Palace, I haven't tested the offensive power of these bullets. Let's test them out. A faint smile appeared on Wang Xian's face. A level 6 Dragon Palace could withstand attacks below the level of Eternal Lord. Similarly, a level 6 Dragon Palace also had offensive means. Although the attack could not be compared to the defense, Wang Xian wanted to take a look. Dragon Palace, attack! He shouted softly. Roar! 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 At this moment, dragon roars sounded from within the Dragon Palace. Chapter 1993. 1993 Doomsday of the Gods. Dragon Palace, attack! Roar roar roar! With a thought from Wang Xian, the attack formation of the Dragon Palace was activated instantly. Earth-shattering dragon roars came from the Dragon Palace at the bottom of the sea and charged upwards. 9 dragon shadows formed by attributes charged out of the Dragon Palace instantly and out of the sea. Dan Wu is about to land on the Dragon Palace. There are thousands of them. There are thousands of them. What would happen if all of them exploded? At this moment, some of the experts who had rushed over were shocked when they saw the bullets flying toward the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace was going to be destroyed. Some thoughts rose in his mind. Yuan Kuei and the other gods were watching this scene from a distance of 100,000 meters away with smiles on their faces. However, when the majestic roars of dragons came from the bottom of the sea, the faces of the gods from the Ling Xiao treasured palace, the sacred hall, and the others turned solemn. Huala! Roar! 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 9 enormous divine dragons rushed out of the sea and roared at the bullet weapons one after another. 9 divine dragons, 9 different colors. Each divine dragon exuded a terrifying majesty. Boom! 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 At this moment, the Dan Wu in the sky exploded under the impact of the 9 divine dragons. Mushroom clouds surged upwards, rolling upwards. The entire world shook. Roar! 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 However, at this moment, the bodies of the divine dragons emitted a radiance of various attributes. The radiance completely blocked the aftershocks of the explosion. One after another, the divine dragons suddenly opened their huge mouths and devoured the exploding clouds. This scene caused everyone's faces to be filled with shock. The divine dragons formed from the 9 attributes were at the center of the explosion. Not only were they not shattered, but they were also rolling in the mushroom clouds. The divine dragons opened their mouths and quickly devoured the harmful substances in the exploding clouds. At this moment, the experts who had taken the risk to come here to watch were completely dumbfounded. The 9 dragons wreaked havoc at the center of the explosion, covering thousands of kilometers of the explosion. Instead, it seemed to have become a playground for the 9 dragons. This is an array formation. The 9 dragons were formed by an array formation. I didn't expect that the Dragon King would have such an array formation. It's indeed not simple. It seems that the Dragon King is the legendary son of heaven of the first true dragon. Furthermore, the Dragon King obtained many more treasures than the other son of heaven of the other true dragons. At this moment, the gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace in the sky were shocked when they saw this scene. They stared at the 9 divine dragons formed by the array formation with solemn expressions. Things had gone beyond their expectations. This formation is very strong, but that's all it is. Kai Yang felt the power of the 9 divine dragons and a cold glint appeared in his eyes. He slowly flew forward. When the gods saw him flying forward, they immediately followed closely behind him. Buzz. So many people are seeking death. Following the Lingxiao treasured palace and the holy church won't end well. At this moment, at the bottom of the sea, Wang Xian led a group of disciples of the Dragon Palace and slowly surfaced from the water. Wang Xian, who was wearing a crown and sitting on the dragon throne, stared coldly at the 21 gods in front of him. Behind him, more than 10,000 disciples of the Dragon Palace stood at the back with weapons in their hands. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as they stared at them. Dragon King. When he saw the Dragon King and the rest taking the initiative to come out, Yuan Kuei's eyes were filled with killing intent. They looked at the majestic Dragon King who was sitting on the dragon throne and scanned the members of the Dragon Palace behind Wang Xian. I really want to know what inheritance your Dragon King has obtained. He actually has so many powerful subordinates. Kai Yang's gaze swept across the tens of thousands of members of the Dragon Palace. His face was also filled with astonishment. The strength of an ordinary high-level demigod was not something that an ordinary demigod could compare with. It seems like I can't let you live, Kai Yang said coldly. If the Dragon King was given a few more years, the strength of the Dragon Palace would be even stronger. Hehe, you can't let me live? Wang Xian's gaze landed on Kai Yang who was in the middle. A hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Dragon King, how dare you kill Ao Chitian, Ao Xingmu, and the rest? Let me kill him. Ao Crab looked at Kai Yang, his eyes full of killing intent. Bone spikes extended from his arms. You are that crab. TSK, TSK, I will kill you within 5 minutes today. Dragon Palace, prepare to die. Ha ha ha. Boom. A carefree laughter came out of Kai Yang's mouth, and a terrifying flame rose. In an instant, the seawater below him evaporated instantly. The seawater below him was about 100 meters lower than the other locations. His imposing manner was completely locked onto Ao Crab. His face was filled with a smile. It was as if he didn't put Ao Crab in his eyes at all. He was very clear about Ao Crab's strength. It was also because he was clear that he had strong confidence. Ao Crab, kill him. Wang Xian ordered Ao Crab indifferently. It's the Dragon King. Ao Crab stared at Kai Yang, who was emitting flames all over his body. There was a hint of disdain in his eyes. Ha ha ha, 5 minutes. All of you only need to hold on for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I will kill this fellow. Then, I will come and destroy the Dragon King and the rest. Kai Yang's body moved, and he flew directly hundreds of thousands of meters into the air. Boom. He waved his arm, and a terrifying spear attacked Ao Crab. Dragon King, give me 1 minute. Ao Crab stared at Kai Yang, who was extremely arrogant and did not put him in his eyes, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. His body flickered. Boom. The flaming spear instantly collapsed. Crash. Ao Crab's waist shook, and a huge wing appeared on his back. Stupid thing. He roared at Kai Yang coldly. Ha ha ha, you are the stupid one. Today, I will let all of you witness my full strength. Kai Yang roared with excitement. Boom, boom, boom. The entire sky was instantly covered by flames, completely forming a fire domain. In the fire domain, the fire giants stared at Aokai coldly as if they were alive. Hehe, Dragon King, I wonder if you have any more subordinates who can fight with me. Yuan Kuei saw that Kai Yang was restraining the strongest subordinate of the Dragon King. He stared at Wang Xian coldly and said with a smile. Don't be so arrogant. Aochi slowly took a few steps forward. Around him, the 9 members who had upgraded to the Berserk Dragon Seed followed behind him. After Aochi killed the gods of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall, he transformed into a Berserk Dragon with his divine spark. Unlike Aochitian's body, Aochi's blood-red armor covered his entire body. He had a blood-red hammer in one hand and a blood-red spear in the other. At his waist, a blood-red chain wrapped around him. Similar to Aochitian, there was an eye between his brows. The blood-red Goyu was in the middle of his pupils. 10 mad dragons locked their cold eyes on Yuan Kuei. Chapter 1994. 1994 in the 1994 Apocalypse of the Gods. Haha, Dragon King, your 10 subordinates have locked onto me. Alright. Today, let me experience the strength of your 10 subordinates. Yuan Kuei saw Aochi and the others exuding a powerful aura, and his face revealed an excited expression. Even if the sudden appearance of these 10 powerful creatures was beyond his expectations, he could clearly sense that the other party's strength was definitely inferior to his. This meant that the Dragon King only had that crab as a trump card. Seal. Aochi's entire body emitted an incomparably violent aura that belonged to the Berserk dragon species. His body shook, and blood-red chains directly attacked Yuan Kuei. Ha ha ha, come and fight. Today, I will take your heads one by one. Yuan Kuei's figure moved, and he directly flew into the sky, his body covered in dense lightning. TSK, Dragon King, as the first person to obtain a dragon soul, you are known as the head of the true dragon. Now, I want to experience it. I don't know if you have condensed a divine dragon body. Roar. Come Dragon King, let me give you some pointers. A young man from the True Dragon Gathering glanced at Yuan Kuei, Kai Yang, and the others. His body moved and he stepped forward. At the same time, he raised his head and roared as his body underwent a huge change. Roar. A golden dragon that was 3,000 to 4,000 meters in size appeared in front of everyone. Golden scales and a majestic dragon head stared at the Dragon King. Ha, the head of a true dragon? Then let the rest of us meet the so-called head of a true dragon today. Behind them, the members of the sacred True Dragon Gathering also moved. Roar. Heaven-shaking sounds sounded as 3 terrifying divine dragons floated in the sky. Jie, the 6 of us are enough to kill the Dragon King and the others. Behind them, the other 2 Son of Heaven looked at each other and moved. Roar. Another 2 dragon roars shook the sky as 6 divine dragons that were 2,000 to 3,000 meters long appeared in the sky above the ocean. Hiss, maybe we don't even need to do anything. 6 true dragon sons of heaven are so powerful and terrifying. Behind them, the last 13 gods looked at the terrifying divine dragons with shock on their faces. They felt that they didn't need to do anything in this battle. Lord Kaiyang, Lord Yuan Kuei, and the 6 true dragon sons of heaven are enough to destroy the dragon palace. A god from the Lingxiao treasured palace looked excited when he saw this scene. He raised his head slightly and looked at this scene proudly. This is the true dragon son of heaven? The Dragon King is already strong enough. I didn't expect that the true dragon son of heaven isn't weak at all. The Dragon King and his group of top-tier godly state experts are completely restrained. How are they going to fight against the 6 true dragons son of heaven now? This is going to be troublesome. Some of the experts who were more than 100 kilometers away were observing the situation here through formations and weapons. When they saw this scene, they took a deep breath. They felt that after the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the Saint Hall recruited a group of true dragons son of heaven this time, Their strength was even stronger than when they were at their peak. Dragon King, come and face your death. The group of true dragon sons of heaven hovered in the sky and turned the seas upside down. Their dragon eyes were filled with mockery as they stared at Wang Xian, who was sitting on the dragon throne. Among the 6 true dragon sons of heaven, 3 of them had already ignited 2 wisps of divine fire. Even if they had not learned the divine dragon transformation, they could still fight 2 levels higher. This was the strength of the divine dragon body. This was also one of the reasons why they dared to provoke and even mock the Dragon King. This was because, in their opinion, the Dragon King had not ignited the divine fire yet. Without a group of subordinates, they could easily kill him. Roar! 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 The 6 divine dragons raised their heads together and let out a deafening dragon roar. The dragon roar was filled with dignity and dominance. Hee. Wang Xian looked at them with a faint smile on his face. He slowly stood up from the dragon chair and stared at the 6 divine dragons who were staring at him with disdain. Since you guys are looking for death, I shall grant your wish. As he spoke, his mind moved. We are looking for death, haha. When one of the true dragons son of heaven heard Wang Xian's words, a smile of proof appeared on his face. He opened his mouth and a wave of terrifying dragon breath was condensing. However, his actions came to an abrupt halt. The other 5 figures who were swaying their bodies in the sky suddenly froze. Roar, roar, roar. No, what's going on? What's going on? Get out of here. All of a sudden, one of the true dragon's son of heaven's dragon body was swaying and rolling in the sky. He seemed to have encountered great fear as he roared in horror. Roar, roar, who are you? Get out of my body and get lost. The other 2 true dragons son of heaven who had ignited 2 wisps of divine fire also had a look of horror in their eyes as they roared ferociously. As for the other 3 true dragons son of heaven, their bodies were floating in the sky without making any sound. They're just a bunch of chess pieces. Wang Xian looked at the 6 true dragons son of heaven and said indifferently. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, the 6 divine dragons suddenly raised their heads and let out a roar toward the sky. Buzz. At this moment, the dragon bodies of the 6 divine dragons trembled violently. They turned around and looked coldly at the dozen or so gods behind them. What's the situation? When the dozen or so gods saw the 6 true dragon sons of heaven suddenly roaring in fear, and when they saw them suddenly turning around and staring at them with murderous intent, the gods behind them were completely dumbfounded. What was going on? With the current strength of Lord Scarlet Sun, Lord Yuan Kuei, and the 6 true dragon sons of heaven, they might not even need to make a move in this battle. What was going on now? Why were the 6 true dragon sons of heaven staring at them like that? Kill them. Right at this moment, they heard the Dragon King's voice. Kill. Immediately after, more than a dozen experts with divine might flew out from behind the Dragon King and directly attacked them. True Dragon Son of Heaven, what are you doing? Kill the Dragon King and the others. A god from the sacred hall saw the Dragon King's subordinates attacking and immediately shouted at the 6 true Dragon Son of Heaven. Roar. However, at this moment, the 6 divine dragons roared and attacked them. At this moment, the gods were completely stunned. What exactly happened? Bang! You, a god who has only ignited 6 wisps of divine fire, dare to say that you can kill me within 5 minutes? Suddenly, the sound of a heavy collision could be heard from above. An AO crab with savage wings on its back and an arm filled with sharp thorns stabbed into the Scarlet Sun god's chest and dove down. No, how is this possible? The Scarlet Sun god felt the pain on his body and stared at the AO crab with a blank expression. The 10 or so gods behind him also widened their eyes when they saw this scene. Didn't they say that they would kill the crab in 5 minutes? Why was it only 10 or so seconds? Chapter 1995. 1995, the end of all gods. What? What is going on? All the gods looked at this scene in astonishment. The 6 true dragon sons of heaven who suddenly attacked them. The Scarlet Sun god whose body was suddenly pierced by the sharp spikes of the Dragon King's subordinates. Especially the Scarlet Sun god. Didn't he just say that he would kill the Dragon King's crab subordinate in 5 minutes? It had only been 10 seconds, but he had already been attacked and injured. This. Run. Run. At this moment, the dozen or so gods didn't hesitate at all. They turned around and fled into the distance. The Scarlet Sun God was the strongest among them. They had relied on him for everything in today's battle. Now, he had been defeated so easily. How is this possible? In the air above the Dragon Palace, Yuan Kuei faced Aochi and the rest of the berserk dragon species alone. When he saw that Scarlet Sun had been injured, his face was filled with shock. How is this possible? How can you be my opponent? Get lost. In a daze, his body trembled, and terrifying flames shot out from his body toward Ao Crab. Whoosh! The bone wings on Ao Crab's back extended forward, directly blocking the flames that were covering him. Through the bone wings, Ao Crab's blood-red eyes were filled with disdain as he stared at the Scarlet Sun God. With your strength, you still dare to say that you can destroy me in 5 minutes. Ao Crab said to him with a disdainful look, and the sharp thorn in his hand moved slightly. Ah! A sharp pain entered his mind. Looking at Ao Crab, who easily blocked his attack, a trace of fear finally appeared on his face. Shengtian Furnace, Divine Kingdom Protection. He gritted his teeth and roared fiercely. Behind him, a huge Divine Kingdom of the Furnace immediately appeared. The Divine Kingdom did not expand, but slowly wrapped around his body. A powerful force rushed toward Ao Crab. He wanted to get rid of Ao Crab's attack. You still want to resist? Ao Crab stared at him, his mouth split open in a sinister smile. At the same time, he pulled out the bone spike that had pierced into the Scarlet Sun God's body, his arm slightly curled up. Escape. At this moment, seeing the bone spike being pulled away from his chest, the Scarlet Sun God hurriedly dodged to the side in fear. However, at this moment, he saw Ao Crab's arm, which was filled with sharp spikes, slightly curled up in front of him. Roar! Roar! A terrifying and ferocious dragon roar suddenly came from his arm. Under his shocked gaze, the arm expanded at a terrifying speed. The position of the finger turned into an incomparably ferocious monster. The head of the monster was somewhat like that of a divine dragon, but it was much more ferocious and terrifying than a divine dragon. It emitted an evil aura. Devouring dragon. At this moment, Ao Crab's emotionless voice rang out, and the terrifying and ferocious dragon head directly attacked the Scarlet Sun God. Heaven-fusing furnace. When the Scarlet Sun God saw this terrifying scene, his expression changed drastically, and he immediately roared out. The Divine Kingdom behind him was like a world furnace, directly melting towards the devouring dragon head. Roar! However, just as they were about to clash, the terrifying dragon head bit down on the Divine Kingdom's furnace. Ka. The sounds of shattering rang out, and the Scarlet Sun God's expression changed, as he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His face was filled with shock. No, how can you be so strong? How can you be so strong? Not long ago, you were only equivalent to 6 wisps of divine fire. How can that be? The threat of death shrouded the god of Scarlet Yang. His face was filled with despair. Looking at his divine kingdom being devoured piece by piece, his entire body was trembling. Roar! The dragon head of the devouring dragon spewed out a terrifying dark light and landed directly on his body. The terrifying power penetrated through his divine kingdom and landed directly on his body. Scarlet Yang widened his eyes. His face was filled with unwillingness as he landed heavily on the ground below. Wang Xian raised his head slightly and looked at the god of Kai Yang who was landing on his side. His eyes revealed a hint of coldness. He waved his arm and the dying Kai Yang landed directly on Wang Xian's side. Bang! When he landed in front of Wang Xian, an invisible barrier caused his body to crash heavily onto the ground. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Both of his hands were trembling as he held onto the spot on his chest. If you want to destroy me, you might not be strong enough. At this moment, Wang Xian's voice rang in his ears. Kai Yang turned his head with difficulty. He looked at Wang Xian in a daze. Please, don't kill me. I'm willing to submit to you. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he spoke with great difficulty. You're not qualified. Wang Xian looked at him and flicked his finger. A destructive force entered his body instantly and wreaked havoc on the life force in his body. Buzz! A mournful sound of heaven and earth rang out. A cloud of fire hung in the sky. A god of fire had fallen. Lord Kaiyang is dead. Lord Kaiyang is dead. At the back, a group of gods who were about to escape had sensed the death of Kaiyang. They shouted in fear. In less than a minute, the invincible Scarlet Sun God was killed. This was a god that was comparable to 7 wisps of divine fire. Now, he was easily killed by the Dragon King's subordinates. Run, run, run now. Run into the starry sky. At this moment, more than 10 gods' faces were filled with panic. It was too terrifying. They didn't dare to stay on Earth any longer, and all of them tried their best to escape into the starry sky. Even if they didn't have the starry sky map, even if they had a slim chance of survival, it was still safer than staying on Earth. It's too late to escape. The godly state experts of the Dragon Palace attacked. The 6 divine dragons swayed their huge bodies and blocked in front of them. No, no, you bunch of true dragon sons of heaven, you actually betrayed us. What's going on? Did the 6 true dragon sons of heaven betray us, or? Panic and despair appeared on the gods' faces. At first, they thought that the Dragon King would be killed without their help. Now, it was the Dragon King who hadn't made a move. How can this be? Is the heaven going to destroy the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall? Yuan Kuei also noticed Kaiyang's death. His face was gloomy and his breathing was hurried. Why were the subordinates of the Dragon King so invincible? Even in the endless starfield, such strength was a very powerful force. Only Master and the others can kill the Dragon King. Only Master and the others can suppress the Dragon King. Yuan Kuei's mind kept running wild. Suddenly, he felt a gaze that made his scalp tingle as he looked in his direction. His figure immediately retreated, and when he raised his head, he met Ao Crab's gaze. At this moment, he saw death. Chapter 1996. 1996. In 1996, the skyscraping holy church was no more. Gulp. Yuan Kuei looked at Ao Xie's cold and disdainful eyes and couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. How could he defend against an expert who could kill the Scarlet Sun God in less than a minute? He couldn't defend at all. Roar. Roar. At this moment, Ao Xie waved his arm, and the arm that had transformed into a ferocious devouring dragon attacked Yuan Kuei directly. No, no, I'm not resigned. I'm actually going to die on a small planet. At this moment, feeling the fatal threat of death, he roared out in despair and unwillingness. Yuan Kuei wanted to escape, but Ao Qi and the other 10 people were blocking him. Not to mention, even without them blocking him, Ao Crab's attack was still not something he could dodge. The difference was too great. Arth. The devouring dragon's head bit his body, causing him to let out a desperate scream. With the death of the Scarlet Sun God and Yuan Kuei's death, the dozen or so gods surrounded by the divine dragons and members of the Dragon Palace completely collapsed at this moment. Even a god that was almost comparable to 7 wisps of divine fire was easily killed by the Dragon King and the others, not to mention their group of 1, 2, or at most 3 wisps of divine fire god. Dragon King, I submit. I submit. Please don't kill me. I am willing to become an external member of the Dragon Palace. I am willing to submit. The gods did not want to die. It was not easy for them to be resurrected. After experiencing death, they were filled with fear towards death. But unfortunately, no, no. Soon, desperate voices rang out. Above the Dragon Palace, the wails of heaven and earth rang out continuously. When the 15th sorrowful cry of heaven and earth fell, the entire world regained a trace of tranquility. Around them, the death of the water elemental god rained down. The death of the wind elemental god caused the winds to howl in all directions. The entire space appeared unusually chaotic. Aohe, bring some people to the Holy Church and kill all the survivors of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. Wang Xian ordered Aohe directly. It's the Dragon King. Aohe nodded and looked at Ao Qi's 10 members. Let's go. Ao Qi nodded and followed behind Aohe as they flew towards the Holy Church. Hiss. This is an easy massacre. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church were killed so easily. Who would have thought that it would end so quickly? The nuclear weapons were easily blocked by the Dragon Palace, and the one who killed the 6 top gods of the Dragon Palace was killed so easily. When everyone thought that the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall could compete with the Dragon Palace, who would have thought that it would end up like this? This time, the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall have completely disappeared from Earth. All the forces that had descended have fallen. Hundreds of kilometers away, all the figures saw this scene, and their faces were filled with shock and respect. After this battle, the Dragon Palace and the Dragon King would completely establish their throne. A high throne. The cries of the heavens and the earth should be the beautiful rhythm of the Dragon King's death. Lord, the Scarlet Young Fire God Yuan Kuei and the true Dragon Sons of Heaven destroyed the Dragon Palace within our expectations. Luke Owen stood in the sky above the sacred palace and looked in the direction of the Ocean Dragon Palace with a smile on his face. Every mournful cry made his smile even wider. After destroying the Dragon Palace, no one on Earth will be able to fight against us. Luke Owen said with a smile. Unfortunately, we can't do as you wish. At this moment, a cold voice entered their ears. At this moment, Luke Owen and a few other gods who had been resurrected by dripping blood had a huge change in expression. They hurriedly looked up into the sky. You, how did you get here? How is this possible? You. When they saw Aochi and the others, their pupils constricted slightly, and their foreheads were instantly filled with cold sweat. They stuttered, and their expressions changed drastically. They're all dead. You guys should go and accompany them. From now on, the Temple of Heaven will completely disappear. Aochi said indifferently. He raised the thunder hammer in his hand, and the blood-red lightning was brewing on it. No, how is this possible? With Kai Yang and the others' strength. Luke Owen's face was full of shock. He hurriedly hid into the temple. Crackle. Ah! The 2 figures beside him could not dodge in time. They were struck by lightning in an instant, and their bodies fell to the ground. Do you think that this sanctuary can still protect you? Ao Crab looked at the sanctuary that was covered by a powerful array formation, and a cold expression appeared on his face. He moved slightly, and an earthy black tail appeared behind him. The tail changed at a terrifying speed. The entire tail was covered in black scales, and there was a terrifying spike on the tail that looked incomparably heavy. Whoosh! Ao Crab waved his tail, and the sharp spike pierced directly towards the array formation. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and the terrifying tail pierced directly into the array formation. No, how is this possible? This is an array formation that can withstand attacks from 8 divine flames and below. How did you suddenly become so strong? When Luke Owen saw that the array formation had been broken, a look of despair appeared on his face. At this moment, he also understood why Scarlet Sun Yuenkue and the others had been killed so quickly. Directly breaking the array formation? This was probably something that only the higher-ups of the Soaring Heavens Palace could do, right? Die. Ao Crab stared coldly at Luke Owen inside as his terrifying tail stirred. Boom. 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 The sound of collapse could be heard. The sound of screams could be heard from inside. Take all the useful materials away, and then, clean this place up. Aochi said to the people beside him. He held a long spear in his hand and threw it down directly. Rumble. The entire Holy Church occupied an area of 700 to 800 kilometers. Sacred mountains and palaces. But soon, the enormous Holy Church began to collapse bit by bit. The Invincible Holy Church, which had stood tall in the West for more than 10 years, began to collapse. It was just like the Soaring Heavens Palace in the eastern sky. Aochi and the others put all the resources in the Holy Church into their interspatial rings. Half an hour later, the enormous Holy Church was reduced to ruins. In the surrounding area, everyone was shocked when they saw the huge object collapse. From now on, the Temple of Heaven and the Holy Church will be completely wiped out. There will be no Temple of Heaven and the Holy Church on earth. When the Holy Church collapsed completely, Ao Crab and the others floated in the air. A majestic voice came out of Ao Crab's mouth and resounded throughout the world. Everyone heard it clearly. At this moment, everyone in the world slightly opened their mouths. Especially those disciples who had followed the gods to descend. Their hearts were shaken and their faces were extremely ugly. Chapter 1997. 1997 continued to wander. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the Templar Hall have been completely wiped out. Hiss, they were so high and mighty that we all worshipped them. Now, they have been completely wiped out by the Dragon King. 15 cries of sorrow. This time, the fallen gods are not only the last gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Templar Hall, but also the resurrected gods. They are on the wrong side. I thought that the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Templar Hall would be heavily attacked this time, but I didn't expect that in less than an hour, the two forces would be completely wiped off the face of the earth. The Dragon King is too powerful. In the future, even if someone ignited the divine fire, he wouldn't be able to contend with the Dragon King. Can everyone count how many gods have fallen at the hands of the Dragon King now? There are a total of 30 to 40 of them. When everyone heard Ao Crab's voice, their faces were filled with shock. Especially the 15 whales of the heavens and earth just now. Those voices caused the entire world to shake. The high and mighty gods, the gods who had lived for 100,000 years, died one after another. At this time, people thought of the gods that had fallen during this period of time. 90% of them were related to the Dragon King. In total, there were almost 30 to 40 of them. They looked like gods, but the Dragon King and the others had killed 30 to 40 of them. What kind of concept was this? Many people felt that they and the Dragon King were not in the same era. I didn't expect that our Lingxiao treasured palace would be completely destroyed and wiped out. How are we going to return to the boundless starfield? The disciples who had followed the Lingxiao treasured palace to descend at that time trembled with despair on their faces. At that time, they had made a great decision and had paid a great price to descend here. No one had expected this outcome. Initially, they still had a glimmer of hope for the few gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Now, they were in complete despair. Dragon King, wipe out all the remnants of the Holy Church. At this moment, Ao He, Ao Qi, and the rest arrived in the Dragon Palace and reported to Wang Xian. Have they been wiped out? How many gods are there in the world now? Wang Xian nodded with a smile and asked Prime Minister Gui. Dragon King, other than that young master from Shenfeng, there is only one god on earth now. Prime Minister Gui reported. Master, that god knows Shenfeng and once expressed his goodwill to me. His words shouldn't be a problem, Xiaoran said to Wang Xian at this moment. The young master of the celestial race was also standing beside Xiaoran. At this moment, he was extremely glad that he had made the choice. As expected, Old Yin was still more awesome than the Dragon King. Such strength would be considered a considerable force in the former Milky Way galaxy. It's the Dragon King. I'll talk to that god. How about we join the Dragon Palace in the future and become external members? I don't think he will reject us. Shenfeng also spoke up immediately. There's no need. If it's you guys, just join Xiaoran's Dragon Gate Academy directly, Wang Xian said to Shenfeng. It's the Dragon King. Then, we'll join the Dragon Gate Academy. In the future, we'll build a powerful God Academy together with brother Xiaoran. Shenfeng was delighted when he heard Wang Xian's words. He nodded immediately. When Xiaoran heard his master's arrangements, he exchanged a glance with Ji Lingfei and revealed a smile. If 2 more gods joined the Dragon Gate Academy, their foundations would be comparable to the forces of the gods that descended back then. Dragon King, this is the starry sky chart that we obtained from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. The 2 starry sky charts are identical. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui walked over and handed the 2 starry sky maps to him. Can the pulling formation at the Lingxiao treasured palace still be restored? Wang Xian looked at the starry sky map with a glint in his eyes. Yes, Dragon King. Are we going to bring Earth into the boundless starfield? Prime Minister Gui asked Wang Xian. If it's the boundless starfield, we are going. As for Earth. Wang Xian pondered for a moment before saying, Xiaoran, go and inform the world. If most of the people agree to let Earth go to the boundless galaxy, we will enter the boundless galaxy. If they don't want to go, we will leave Earth here. After all, Earth was their hometown. He was not going to make the decision to change the fate of everyone on Earth. If they wanted to enter the boundless galaxy, we could bring Earth there. If they didn't want to go, Wang Xian could also order the Dragon Palace to travel through the starry sky and head to the powerful galaxy. Yes, Master. Xiao Ran nodded. Also, as usual, the Dragon Palace rules the ocean and will not interfere in other matters. Wang Xian stood up slowly and said in the end. Xiao Ran and the rest nodded. They did not stay in the Dragon Palace any longer and flew out. Next, after we revive Ao Chitian and the rest, we will raise the strength of the members of the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian instructed Prime Minister Gui. This time, they had killed 15 gods and all the treasures in the sanctuary. The resources were not as much as the last time. However, there was the corpse of a god with 6 wisps of divine fire. After Ao Chitian and the others recovered, these resources could also increase the number of godly state experts in the Dragon Palace. In the outside world, after a battle that focused on the entire world, the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church completely disappeared. While many people were discussing, the Dean of the Dragon Gate Academy announced something. Today, there would be a vote on the internet. The content of the vote would be whether Earth was willing to go in and head to the boundless star field. When this news spread out, it caused a huge sensation. When the gods brought Earth to the boundless galaxy, it caused a huge panic. With the people's understanding, they gradually calmed down. But even so, facing the unknown galaxy, they were still filled with confusion and didn't know what to do. Now, they were given the right to choose whether or not to enter the galaxy. I didn't expect the Dragon King to let us make a choice. It seems that even if we don't enter the boundless starfield, the Dragon King and the others will go there on their own. I want to go there. According to the gods, that is the starfield for cultivation. The divine sons and goddesses of the various starfield sects compete for glory. Powerful existences can destroy the stars with a wave of their hands. Only by entering the boundless starfield can we have the chance to become such an existence. There are benefits and disadvantages to entering the boundless starfield. If our Earth wants to improve, we must enter the boundless starfield. It proves that Earth has already walked quite a distance. We might as well go there directly. Countless people were discussing on the internet. Some young people of the younger generation wanted to continue traveling on Earth and wanted to venture into unknown starfield. And those disciples who had followed the gods to descend had excited expressions on their faces when they saw this scene. They still had a chance to return to the boundless starfield. Chapter 1998. 1998 on the mutated space locust in the 1998 Divine Tomb. Master, the voting has ended. 80% of the people want to go to the boundless galaxy. Only 20% of them want to stay here. A day later, Xiao Ran passed the results of the online voting to Wang Xian. Most of them still hoped to step into the boundless galaxy. They also wanted to ignite the divine fire and become gods, roaming in the void. Once they became gods, they would have a lifespan of 100,000 years. If they could step into a higher realm, their lifespan would reach 1,000,000. Who didn't want to obtain a longer lifespan? Who didn't want to roam the void and see the races in the universe? Seeing this result, Wang Xian wasn't too surprised. If it was him, he would also choose to enter the boundless galaxy. In that case, Earth will continue to move forward. Wang Xian nodded at Xiao Ran and immediately ordered Prime Minister Gui and the rest to restart the array formation. The array formation was in the dilapidated Lingxiao Palace. After restarting it, as long as they put in spirit stones, they would be able to move forward rapidly. At this speed, they would be able to enter the boundless galaxy in 4 years. It's moving. The planet is moving towards the boundless galaxy. I didn't expect the Dragon King to be so bold. He really dares to go to the boundless galaxy. The Dragon King might not know how powerful the boundless galaxy is. He has killed so many gods in our skyscraping treasured palace and the Holy Church. The great forces of the boundless galaxy will not let him go. At that time, he will regret everything he has done. However, we still have to thank the Dragon King. If he really doesn't dare to enter the boundless galaxy, we won't have the chance to return to our hometown. The disciples who had followed the Dragon King to the boundless galaxy sensed that Earth was heading towards the boundless galaxy once again, and their faces were filled with excitement. Earth once again plunged into the vast starry sky. And just like the era that the Dragon King had suppressed before, the Dragon King guarded the land of the sea and didn't care about anything else. The Dragon Gate Academy had become the world's most powerful force, and it was also a force that countless people were fighting to join. Now, there were 4 gods in Dragon Gate Academy. These 4 gods were the only ones other than the Dragon Palace. Since there was only one god in Dragon Gate Academy, it was natural for countless people to rush into it. Now, Dragon Gate Academy had opened 2 more branches. Those who could enter were all elites of the entire world. Even many disciples who came with them also joined Dragon Gate Academy. Time flew by quickly. Earth was wandering and Wang Xian had been staying in the Dragon Palace. In the middle of the time, he returned to the Transcendence continent to check on the group of girls who were cultivating. According to his estimation, the group of girls would be able to ignite the divine fire soon. The entire Dragon Palace fell into silence. In the beginning, 2 divine kingdoms appeared one after another on Earth. It was a pity that after the appearance of the 2 divine kingdoms, no more divine kingdoms appeared. After the 2 little girls ran around the Dragon Palace for a month or 2, they got bored and now stayed under the ancestral tree to cultivate. All the members of the Dragon Palace were in closed-door cultivation. The speed of cultivation for a year was equivalent to cultivating in the outside world for more than 100 years. In just a year, many members of the Dragon Palace had made great breakthroughs. Now, the weakest members of the Dragon Palace were at the demigod rank 8 realm, and half of them had already reached the demigod rank 9 realm. The number of members of the Dragon Palace who had lit the divine fire had reached 25, and the number of those who had the combat strength of the god realm had reached about 40. This strength could be said to be very terrifying. In this 1 year, because of the great power of the Dragon Gate Academy, the entire world was peaceful, and there was no large-scale war. Many people entered the divine kingdoms to cultivate, and their strength increased greatly. On Earth, experts at the profound void realm weren't as rare as before. I heard from teacher that it's very difficult for us to become gods. Those gods would need at least 1,000 years to ignite the divine fire. We have the divine kingdoms to cultivate in, and it's also a huge opportunity in the boundless star field. But not everyone has Dean Xiao's opportunity. Dean Xiao has the Dragon King. In just a year, the Dragon King has advanced to the divine realm. If only I could become the Dragon King's disciple. Don't even think about it. It's said that the Dragon King doesn't accept disciples. Even Dean Xiao is only the Dragon King's in-name disciple. If we want to become gods quickly, we have to obtain opportunities in the divine tomb. We've been wandering around here for 2 or 3 days, but we still can't get in. Sigh. It's not just us. Look around you. There are at least tens of millions of people who want to find opportunities. In the North Pole, around the vast divine tomb, cultivators who were dreaming of entering the divine tomb to find opportunities were wandering around. At present, no one had entered the divine tomb in the South Pole. The North Pole was fine, but since the last time the divine tomb was closed, it had never been opened again. This made countless people unwilling. In addition to their current understanding of the divine tomb, millions of people came here every day to seek opportunities. If they could enter, it would be like stepping into the realm of gods for them. Even some teachers of Dragon Gate Academy laughed and said that if anyone could obtain opportunities in the divine tomb, they could ignite the divine fire. This also caused many students of the Dragon Gate Academy to come here in search of an opportunity. Buzz. However, on a certain day, the entire divine tomb suddenly trembled, causing the people who were conversing and the surrounding people to be slightly stunned. They hurriedly stared at the divine tomb, their eyes filled with astonishment. What happened? A student of the Dragon Gate Academy's face changed as he stared at the divine tomb in front of him. The towering mountain peaks that formed the divine tomb seemed to have come to life at this moment, continuously emitting light tremors. What's going on? Could it be that the entrance of the divine tomb has reopened? Some people hurriedly flew towards the entrance, their faces filled with shock. Hong. Right at this moment, on the mountain peak that was about 30,000 meters from the center of the divine tomb, a terrifying earthen yellow pillar suddenly rose up. The 10,000-meter-wide earthen yellow pillar contained boundless earth elemental energy, and the enormous pillar connected to the universe. Seeing this scene, everyone around the North Pole divine tomb revealed shocked expressions. What happened in the divine tomb? Could someone have obtained the inheritance of the divine tomb? Hiss, how long is this pillar that connects to the void? At least 100 kilometers, right? More than 100 kilometers. How could there be such a heaven and earth phenomenon? What on earth happened? The change in the divine tomb caused everyone around to tremble. When the earthen yellow pillar rose, the entire world could see the phenomenon there. Chapter 1999. 1999. In the 1999 divine tomb, among the mutated space locusts. Ha 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 ha, the body of a mountain, the body of a mountain, I have finally obtained the body of a mountain. I, flying dust, from a speck of dust, have finally grown into a mountain. In the future, I, flying dust, will become the mountain god lord. I use mountains to suppress mountains and rivers, I use mountains to suppress the starry sky, ha ha ha. While everyone in the outside world was looking at the North Pole god's tomb in shock, a 100-meter tall figure stood proudly in the main peak in the center of the god's tomb. Around him, small mountains were rotating around him. He was shirtless, and there were many mountain patterns on his body. In the sky, the main peak of the god's tomb was hovering above him, and the earth-yellow energy pillar that reached the sky rushed out from the mountain peak. With the stars as the thick soil, bearing my mountain body, rise. Chen Feiyang roared, his eyes filled with excitement as he stared at the main peak in the sky. Wang. A terrifying mountain energy poured into his body. Mountain God Lord once used his invincible divine body to cross the void and become a God Lord. He once destroyed a star with one punch. I, Chen Feiyang, will use my tiny body to destroy everything. Chen Feiyang's face revealed a burning expression as he felt his body rapidly improving. Scenes appeared in his mind. Once, he suffered humiliation. Once, he paid the price for following the gods to earth. Once, he cultivated with all his might. When I return, it will be the time for the world to worship me. Wong 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 wong. When the North Pole god tomb mutated, in the South Pole. In the eternal divine kingdom, a 1,000-meter-wide divine light tiger was quietly lying there. Sensing the change in the North Pole, the divine light tiger slowly opened its eyes. Its eyes were like the eyes of a miniature divine tiger as it looked towards the north. It's that guy Shan Yu's divine tomb. I remember that old guy Shan Yu died completely. Did someone obtain his inheritance? It looks like he obtained the inheritance of Shan Yu's body, the god of light muttered as he looked at the divine pond of light in front of him. Lord God, when are we going to leave? With your strength, you will definitely be able to suppress us for an entire lifetime. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the side. An old man was wearing a white robe. On the robe was written the divine servant of light wings. If people on earth saw the appearance of the old man, they would definitely be shocked. He was the strongest person in the fire god palace, Suiyang, who brought the divine weapon and crashed into the divine tomb. Wait for my strength to recover a little. The light divine tiger glanced at Suiyang indifferently. He slowly stood up and walked into the divine pool of light. It's the Lord God. Suiyang bowed respectfully and shouted loudly, when the Lord God steps out of the eternal divine kingdom, it will be the dawn. A new light will envelop the world. Roar. The divine light tiger heard his words and roared happily. You will be below 10,000 people. The divine light tiger's voice entered Suiyen's ears, causing Suiyen's body to tremble. His face was filled with excitement. The divine light tiger was the divine light-wing lord who had fallen. At the South Pole, it was not a divine tomb, but the divine kingdom of the eternal God Lord. When the God Lord comes out of the mountain, the Dragon King will be nothing but an ant. Even in the boundless starfield, he will still be a top-tier existence. Suiyen's body trembled as he thought to himself, his eyes filled with fire. Now that Suiyang had narrowly escaped death and entered this place, he only wanted to obtain the opportunity to kill the Dragon King. Now, the Dragon King was no longer in his eyes. What he was going to conquer next was the boundless star field. Buzz. With a wave of his arm, the god of light with the god of light as the core flew to him and laid down beside him. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. He jumped onto the divine tiger and flew backward. What's going on? At this moment, at the Ocean Dragon Palace, Wang Xian sensed the movement from the divine kingdom of the North Pole. He flew to the surface of the sea with a shocked expression. Looking at the huge earthy yellow pillar that went straight into the starry sky, his face was filled with a solemn expression. Even he couldn't achieve such a terrifying power. Could it be that someone from the divine tomb of the North Pole really obtained the inheritance of the Master God? Wang Xian frowned slightly. The inheritance of the Master God was above the gods. A Master God could easily wipe out the Dragon Palace. In fact, a Master of God could even destroy the entire earth with his full strength. The power of the Master of God was unpredictable. Wang Xian was not afraid of the temple of Ling Xiao or the gods in the boundless galaxy. He was still afraid of the Master of God. Dragon King, Earth is about to enter the chaotic space zone. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui appeared beside Wang Xian and reported to him. Oh, have you entered the chaotic space zone? Wang Xian had a serious expression on his face. The chaotic space zone was the most dangerous area to travel to in the boundless space zone. Chaotic space zones existed in many places in the universe. Some of these chaotic space zones were formed naturally while others were formed due to the battle between terrifying experts. The so-called chaotic space zones were the chaotic energy of the universe. Asteroids and gigantic flaming planets shuttled through them. There were even some terrifying creatures born in the chaotic region. Back when the gods had descended here, many of the gods had fallen and all died in the chaotic region. Even some big shots in the boundless galaxy didn't dare to take this risk. If one wasn't careful, 7 or 8 wisps of divine fire gods would also die in the chaotic region. It would take 1.5 years to pass through this region. In the following 1.5 years, Earth would be extremely dangerous. However, in order to lead Earth, the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church had already found a relatively safe path. As long as they had the protection of the gods, it wouldn't be too much of a problem to cross that region. Furthermore, with the Dragon Palace around, it wouldn't be too much of a problem to cross the chaotic region. Get the members of the Dragon Palace to pay attention. If there's a situation ahead, deal with it immediately. Wang Xian reminded Prime Minister Gui. It's the Dragon King. Prime Minister Gui nodded his head. The change in the divine tomb caused a huge change, especially the khaki energy pillar. Countless people tried to enter the divine tomb through the energy pillar, but they were instantly killed by the energy inside. Even the god of the divine peak from the Dragon Gate Academy shook his head and returned. The matter of the divine tomb shook the world. Soon, another piece of news caused a huge discussion. Dragon Gate Academy announced that they would enter the chaotic region of the universe next. Everyone was careful. When they heard this news, everyone's expressions changed slightly. Especially those disciples who had followed the gods to descend, their faces revealed a trace of nervousness. 1.5 years of traveling in the chaotic starfield was filled with many dangers. With the Dragon King around, we should be fine. The Dragon King and the others are so powerful. Soon, some people's worries were dispelled. Back then, when the gods could descend here, with the Dragon King's strength, he would definitely be able to bring them through safely. Chapter 2000. 2000 under the 2000 mutated space locusts in the divine tombs. In the chaotic starfield, there was no sunlight. This was a place where even the sun could not shine. One formation after another rose up and enveloped Earth, creating a formation of the sun. It rose from the east and fell from the west, replacing the original sun. Moreover, because of the recovery of spiritual energy, the plants on Earth did not need to undergo photosynthesis at all. Spiritual energy was the best energy. Look over there, that huge meteorite. Oh my God, this meteorite is even bigger than the moon. This starfield is simply too shocking. If not for the Dragon King and the others leading us, how advanced would our technology be to be able to pass through this starfield? After Earth entered the chaotic starfield for a week, the appearance of the chaotic starfield gradually appeared in front of everyone. Those incomparably huge chaotic meteorites and those oddly shaped planets brushed past Earth. There's a meteorite right in front of us. Not good, we're going to crash into it. Suddenly, everyone's faces were filled with shock as they looked at the meteorite in front of them that had a circumference of over 1,000 kilometers. Their faces were filled with shock. It can't be, we're going to crash into it. Some timid people looked over with shock on their faces. Whoosh, whoosh. However, at this moment, two figures directly disappeared into the void. Buzz. Vaguely, two figures could be seen standing on the right side of the meteorite and pushing it with force. The meteorite, which was over 1,000 kilometers long, floated to the side. It's the two gods of the Dragon Palace, hiss. We don't have to worry. With the Dragon King here, we'll be fine. This was the first time the people on Earth had experienced such a situation. Seeing the meteorite in front of them being pushed away, they let out a sigh of relief. It's dark all around. Other than some meteors that occasionally burst into flames, Earth is the most eye-catching. I think the most eye-catching thing is that earthy yellow light pillar. That energy light pillar directly rushed into the void. It's said to be over 1,000 kilometers away. Some people looked at the huge earthy yellow energy pillar at the North Pole, their faces filled with surprise and curiosity. What was the reason for the energy pillar charging into the void over 1,000 kilometers away? Earth continued to move forward, encountering all sorts of situations from time to time. GG. In the endless darkness of the chaotic region, a pitch-black creature with wings, a head like a locust, and 4 sharp claws was searching for all kinds of energy to feed in the chaotic starfield. It made a special sound from its mouth. Each monster was 3 meters in size and did not look very powerful. At most, they were comparable to demigods, but they could travel in the starry sky. This special creature was known as the space beast in the universe. The ordinary space beasts had the strength of god level and above. The powerful space beasts were comparable to the eternal godlord or even higher. There were brutal space beasts that could even destroy a starfield. It was extremely terrifying. Although these 3-meter-long space beasts were small and weak, their most terrifying part was their numbers. At the source of the sound, tens of millions of these space beasts were flying in the chaotic star field like locusts. However, these tens of millions of them were only a small number to these space beasts. They were known as the space locusts in the universe. Chirp, 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 chirp. They were flying aimlessly and preying on their prey. Suddenly, the space locusts at the front made a rapid sound. They were like cats that had smelled the fishy smell. They immediately changed their direction and flew to the right. They were very fast, twice as fast as ordinary demigod creatures. The densely packed space locusts that covered an area of more than 100 kilometers were like meteorites that streaked across the void. GGGG. At this moment, an excited voice came from the front again. A group of space locusts were staring at the earthy yellow energy pillar with blood-red eyes in the darkness. GGGG. Following that, a group of space locusts flew toward the earthy yellow energy pillar with incomparable excitement. It was overwhelming and densely packed. Hey! Space locusts, these are the space locusts from the mountain godlord's inheritance. Good stuff, good stuff. Mountain nest, come in. Ha ha ha. The heavens are really helping me. So I, Chen Feiyang, am the darling of this piece of space. At this moment, in the North Pole's divine tomb, when Chen Feiyang sensed tens of millions of space locusts flying towards the Earth attribute energy pillar, his face did not show the slightest bit of panic. Instead, he revealed an excited expression. His eyes were burning as he stared at the space locusts in the sky. His body trembled. An even denser amount of Earth elemental energy charged towards the energy pillar. At this moment, the tens of millions of space locusts crazily flew towards the god's tomb along the energy pillar. It's too little, it's still too little. The number of space locusts is too little. Let's have more. The space locusts flew into the divine tomb along the earthen yellow energy pillar and disappeared into the body of the flying dust. It was as if his body had become the nest of the space locusts. And his body seemed to be endless. GGGG. At this moment, the space locusts in the sky let out ear-piercing cries that spread far and wide. Dragon King, there's a change in the void. There are creatures around. The change in the void immediately attracted the attention of the experts in the Dragon Palace. They reported to Wang Xian. Are there any creatures? Wang Xian's face showed a hint of seriousness. He flew directly to the sky above the Dragon Palace and looked into the void. Dragon King, according to the records in the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, these are space locusts. They roam the void and feed on all kinds of energy. Prime Minister Gui came to Wang Xian's side and said to him, "These space locusts are comparable to the strength of a first-level demigod. The leader level is slightly stronger. These tens of millions of them belong to a small group of space locust. They must have been attracted by the earthy yellow energy pillar in the North Pole Divine Tomb. That energy pillar is really troublesome." Wang Xian looked into the void and was slightly shocked. Tens of millions of space locusts that were comparable to a first-level demigod could completely destroy a planet. He looked at the energy pillar and stared at the space locusts one by one. To avoid accidents, we have to destroy them. Such a large number of space locusts is also a lot of energy. Wang Xian ordered Prime Minister Gui, who was beside him. "It's the Dragon King." Prime Minister Gui nodded his head. However, at this moment, an urgent voice covered the entire earth, causing Wang Xian to raise his eyebrows slightly. "GG, GG." At this moment, a dense response suddenly sounded in the void. "Dragon King, these tens of millions of space locusts are just the vanguard. There are even more at the back." Prime Minister Gui's pupils constricted slightly as he immediately said, "More ants could bite an elephant to death." It was the same for the space locusts. With tens of millions of space locusts, if a wisp of divine fire god did not escape and fight against them, a wisp of divine fire god would soon be engulfed and devoured. Chapter 2001. 2001 Space Beast, Kuan Shong. What's that sound? What happened? What a terrifying sound. What's going on? Could it be that we've encountered some danger again? When that dense sound reverberated through the entire starry sky, everyone on Earth could hear it clearly. The roars of countless creatures made people's scalps go numb. Even those who were sleeping were instantly awakened by the sound and immediately walked out. "Oh my God, that's..." When everyone looked up at the starry sky, shock appeared on their faces. There were countless starry locusts and countless pairs of blood-red eyes. At a glance, there were so many of them that one could not see the end. It was as if the entire Earth was covered by the starry locusts. Those are space locusts, space locusts. Any small-scale space locusts have the power to devour gods. Hiss, how did we meet these space beasts? These locusts are very difficult to deal with. Unless we destroy all of them, these things will hold a grudge. Look, they are rushing towards the energy pillar. They were attracted by that terrifying earthen yellow energy pillar. A series of shocked voices rang out. Everyone's scalps went numb as they watched everything. The sky above Earth was actually completely covered by these creatures. This was only the surface. Just how many of these locusts were behind it? 1 billion? 10 billion? Or 100 billion? This made people think of the locust disaster on Earth. However, that locust disaster was nothing compared to the one in the starry sky. The locusts feed on all sorts of flesh and blood and energy, but they seem to be attracted by the energy pillar and have no intention of attacking us. Some of the disciples who had followed the gods to descend had a better understanding of the astral beasts, so they kept introducing them to the people around them. However, even if the countless astral locusts did not launch any attacks, they were still filled with a savage aura, causing everyone's expressions to become extremely grave. If the countless space locusts were to attack them, how would they be able to defend against them? Would the Dragon King be able to defend against them? According to the disciples of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, a few tens of millions of space locusts would be able to cause a wisp of divine fire god to flee in panic. Would the Dragon King and the rest of them be able to defend against the countless space locusts? Why are there so many space locusts? At this moment, in the sky above the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian looked at the starry locusts that had completely covered the starry sky with a grave expression. Around him, a group of divine realm experts from the Dragon Palace followed behind him. Other than that, there were 7 other clones standing there. They stared at the locusts in the void. There are so many locusts. Even if we were to kill them, it would be a little strenuous. Ao Crab looked at the space locusts within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers and was slightly shocked. Although Ao Crab was comparable to a god with 8 wisps of divine fire, he still felt his scalp go numb in the face of so much fear in the space. These space empires within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers could almost submerge him. Dragon King, they are surging toward the energy pillar. They have entered the divine tomb through the energy pillar. Ao Chitian, Ao Chi, and the others were looking at the energy pillar with a solemn expression on their faces. The divine tomb in the North Pole seems to be the divine tomb of the mountain god. The mountain god became the divine master because of his unique physique. It seems to be the body of a mountain. Mountains hold down mountains and rivers. With one punch, the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers are shattered. Hura and Sia frowned slightly as they spoke from the side. Wang Xian looked at the countless space locusts that had suddenly gathered in the void and did not attack on his own. He had no idea how many space locusts there were in the void. He did not dare to attack rashly. Haha, I didn't expect there to be so many space locusts. What a pity. With my current strength, I can only take in 5 billion of them. At this moment, in the North Pole's divine tomb, Chen Feiyang was looking at the countless space locusts charging at him with excitement. The number of space locusts had completely exceeded his expectations. What a pity. I hope that after my strength increases, you guys will still be here. Chen Feiyang looked at the void with a regretful expression. Wang. His body trembled, and the entire earthen yellow energy pillar trembled slightly, as if it had completely sealed the entrance. GG. The moment the passageway closed, waves of tyrannical aura suddenly came from the surrounding space locusts. They let out sharp cries, and the countless space locusts in the sky began to panic. GG. Suddenly, the locusts opened their sharp mouths and bit towards the earthen yellow energy pillar. However, they realized that they couldn't do anything to the energy pillar, and their blood-red eyes became even more irritable. GG. In an instant, an incomparably terrifying aura charged towards Earth. Not good, these space locusts are going crazy. At this moment, everyone could see the space locusts' irritation, and their expressions changed drastically. Chirp. The next moment, everyone saw the dense swarm of space locusts charging towards them. Oh no, we're done for. Everyone's faces were filled with horror. Ao Xingmu, lead the Starwood Combat Division to form a barrier on the mainland. When Wang Xian saw the space locusts attacking, his expression changed slightly as well. He immediately gave an order to Ao Xingmu. It's the Dragon King. Out of the 2,000 warriors of the Starwood Combat Division, including Ao Xingmu, 6 members of the Starwood Combat Division lit the divine fire. Once they lit the divine fire, they would have the strength to fight against the 4 wisps of the divine fire god. The rest of the members of the Starwood Combat Division were all at the level of demigod level 9 and at the peak. Whoosh. The entire Starwood Combat Division immediately flew toward the mainland. Especially the 6 members who had lit up the divine fire, the branches under their bodies immediately spread to the surroundings. Ao Xingmu's branches covered an area of a few thousand kilometers. The branches hung down one by one. They stared coldly at the space locusts that were diving down from the sky. All members of the combat division of the Dragon Palace, get ready. Wang Xian shouted softly. Yes. The members of the Demon Combat Division, the Heaven's Eye Arrow Division, the Mount Division, the Thunder Division, the Dragon Guard, and the Dolphin Support Division immediately responded loudly. Kill. Wang Xian waved his arm. Kill. The group of members of the Dragon Palace immediately flew towards the sky to meet the dense swarm of space locusts. It's the members of the Dragon Palace. The subordinates of the Dragon King have made their move. All of them are level 1 demigod space locusts. If they rush down, we will be killed instantly. I hope the Dragon King and the others can hold them off. Hiss, look at how powerful the members of the Dragon Palace are. After they spread out their thorns, they covered a radius of several thousand kilometers. There are 6 of them. They are too powerful. When the members of the Dragon Palace made their move, everyone let out a sigh of relief. Seeing the members of the Starwood Combat Division flying over one by one to hold back most of the sky, everyone was shocked and a little nervous at the same time. Chapter 2002. 2002 Space Beast, Kuan-Zhong. Thorns hung down and covered the sky of the continent. Now that the continent had become one, the members of the Dragon Palace were guarding it. There were 2,000 members of the Starwood Combat Division and 6 beings who had ignited the divine fire. They floated in the sky, and the thorns built up an enormous defense in the sky. Thorns fell from tens of thousands of meters away, and some of them could even be touched with one's hand. Chirp, 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 chirp. In the sky, countless space locusts pounced toward Earth. They had blood-red eyes, sharp claws, and sharp teeth. Space beasts had a special characteristic, which was that their instincts were higher than their intelligence. Space beasts rarely had the intelligence to speak human language. Most of them relied on their instincts to fight, kill, hunt, and survive. Roar, roar, roar. In the ocean, the demon monkeys, thunder shrimp, and the others also roared, and a terrifying aura welcomed the space locusts. Have all the members of the Dragon Palace come out? There are more than 20,000 warriors. Their auras are so terrifying. Back then, only 2,000 demon monkeys could fight against more than 100,000 heavenly soldiers, heavenly generals, and holy warriors. Now, 20,000 members of the Dragon Palace and dozens of gods will definitely be able to resist the space locust. When everyone saw the 20,000 or so members of the Dragon Palace rush into the sky, their faces instantly revealed a look of awe. At this time, the Dragon Palace was their guardian god. All disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy who are at least at the demigod level, follow me in battle. If you want to become stronger and become a god, you will have to go through all sorts of battles. Kill. At the 3 Dragon Gate Academies, the figures of God Peaks Ji Lingfei, Xiao Ran, and another god were heard. Hundreds of voices immediately flew into the sky, right next to the members of the Starwood War Department. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. When countless space locusts entered Earth's 100,000-meter domain, the members of the Starwood War Department attacked the sky with countless thorns. At this moment, at least 100 million thorns stabbed towards the space locusts. G. In an instant, an earth-shattering scream sounded, and countless space locusts let out ear-piercing sounds before dying. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, nearly 100 million corpses fell toward the ground. Hiss. Seeing the space locusts' corpses fall like rain, everyone's faces revealed shock. These are demigod-level space beast. The Dragon King's subordinates are so terrifying. Not good. Look, we've killed at least 100 million space locusts, but there aren't any signs of reduction. Everyone looked at the falling bodies of the space locusts in shock. However, they soon discovered that the number of space locusts attacking from the sky didn't seem to decrease. How many locusts are there? These locusts are comparable to the strength of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. If there really are billions and billions of them, how can we defend against them? Some of the disciples who came with the gods showed terrified expressions. Could the Dragon King really defend against tens of billions of them? Roar. In the sky, the Demon War Department, the Thunder Department, and the Dragon Guards rode the Fire Phoenix Dragon Seed into the sky and began the second round of attack. More than 40 godly state experts of the Dragon Palace launched a terrifying attack at the same time. The energy that blotted out the sky shocked everyone. Billions of corpses fell toward the ground. Hiss. Everyone on Earth looked at the large number of corpses that fell, and their faces were full of shock. However, soon, a trace of solemnity appeared on everyone's faces. 5 minutes had passed, and at least billions of corpses fell to the ground. However, the number of space locusts in the void did not decrease at all. How many space locusts are there? The experts of the Dragon Palace have killed countless of them. Some people watched in shock, and a bad premonition slowly emerged in their hearts. There are too many, there are simply too many space locusts. At the same time, Ao Chitian, Ao Xingmu, and the group of mad dragons in the sky also frowned slightly, and a hint of solemnity appeared on their faces. In the beginning, the countless space locusts were 100,000 meters away from Earth. However, They were now 50,000 meters away. I can't see the edge. The number of these brother-controlled locusts is probably in the hundreds of billions. At this moment, Ao Yarrow came back from the void and his voice reached their ears. This caused the expressions of the leaders of the Dragon Palace to change drastically. At the same time, in the sky above the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian also heard Ao Yarrow's report. His face sank slightly. According to the records in the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, 100 billion starry locusts are considered a large-scale disaster. Even if there are more than 100 gods, it would be extremely difficult to deal with them together. How did we encounter such a large-scale swarm of starry locust? Prime Minister Gui's expression was a little awkward. If there are fewer of them, they are completely resources to us. However, if there are more of them... Wang Xian frowned slightly. His expression didn't look good either. Although they wouldn't be in any danger with the Dragon Palace around, the rest might not be so. Woo-woo, Dad, I want to eat food. At this moment, an extremely dull voice suddenly rang in Wang Xian's ears. It was as though he was holding a huge loudspeaker and shouting beside his ear. He was slightly stunned. Wang Xian immediately looked down and saw the huge creature in the Dragon Palace. Xiaolan. The first Kuan of Qing Yu was upgraded to level 6 in the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace would be able to accommodate him. At this moment, Xiaolan occupied an area of 200 kilometers around the Dragon Palace. His body had also reached the size of 100 kilometers. He was an incomparably terrifying giant beast. Recently, he had obtained countless resources. Naturally, Wang Xian did not forget Xiaolan. As a Kuan that used to feed on top-tier bloodlines in the universe, a Kuan that terrified all top-tier bloodlines, Wang Xian naturally had to focus on nurturing it. Now, Xiaolan's strength was comparable to a god with a wisp of divine fire. There were no realms or ranks in the Kuan. As long as there was enough bloodline food, it could continue to grow. Xiaolan, will your strength be a match for these locusts? Wang Xian looked at Xiaolan and asked with a frown. Xiaolan called Lan Qingyu Mama, so naturally, she would call him Daddy. Woo-woo, Daddy, I'm not afraid of them. Xiaolan said immediately. All right, then you can go. Once you are in danger, go back immediately. Wang Xian nodded his head. Woo-woo, it's Daddy. Xiaolan nodded her head with excitement in her eyes. Her eyes that were thousands of meters wide looked at the locusts in the starry sky with excitement. Buzz. He swayed his huge body and flew out of the Dragon Palace. A black hole appeared in front of him. Xiaolan went straight into the black hole. Wang Xian looked at him and raised his eyebrows slightly. Woo-woo. At this moment, a deafening sound was heard from the swarm of locusts in the starry sky. Damn, Xiaolan. When Wang Xian raised his head and looked over, he couldn't help but swear. His eyes widened slightly. Chapter 2003. 2003 Space Beast, Kuan Xia. Woo-woo. A voice filled with excitement came from the space locusts. At this moment, even the entire space locusts were slightly stunned. This was like a sheep that had suddenly blended into a pack of wolves. Little Blue had suddenly appeared, causing all the surrounding space locusts to be stunned. Oh my god, what is that thing? Why did a terrifying giant beast suddenly appear from the space locust? At this moment, not only was the swarm of space locusts stunned, everyone below looked at Little Blue, who was in the swarm of space locusts, with shocked expressions on their faces. It's over, it's over. The space locusts haven't been destroyed yet, and now such a huge beast has appeared. This is a real space beast. This 100-kilometer large body is a real space beast, a real space beast. Is the heavens going to destroy us? What was the concept of a 100-kilometer long body? It was the size of a small city. But now, a giant beast, a 100-kilometer long body, was comparable to some large meteorites. Was Earth really going to be finished? Woo! Just as everyone was frightened by Xiaolan's sudden appearance in the sky, Xiaolan once again let out an extremely excited sound. Little Blue opened its huge mouth and started to devour the surrounding space locusts. Everyone below could see the bloody mouth. This scene was exactly the same as a whale swallowing countless shrimp in the ocean. Little Blue, which was 100 kilometers in size, and its mouth, which was more than 10 kilometers in size, started to devour. Moreover, there seemed to be a powerful suction force in its mouth. With a single bite, at least tens of millions of space locusts were sucked into his mouth and swallowed directly into his stomach. GG, GG. Seeing the space behemoths suddenly appear and swallow their own kind, all the space locusts in the surroundings began to boil. This was the first time they had seen such an arrogant fellow directly charge into their group. In an instant, Little Blue's body was covered by the space locusts. Buzz. However, when the space locusts landed on Little Blue's body and bit him with their sharp claws and teeth, an earthen yellow light flashed past. An extremely terrifying suction force was transmitted from Little Blue's body. Pa 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 pa. Under this suction force, the locusts turned into blood like flies that had been hit by a palm. The blood slowly merged into Xiaolan's body. Woo woo. At this moment, Xiaolan let out an extremely excited sound again. It opened its bloody mouth again and continued to devour the locusts around it. It was like a whale that had been hungry for a long time meeting a group of shrimps. Indeed, the locusts were like shrimps in front of Xiaolan. When Wang Xian saw this heaven-defying scene, he was astonished. With his current strength, he had to be cautious when he entered this endless swarm of locusts. Even after Xiaolan entered, she was still so arrogant. This should be the characteristic of a Kuan. A Kuan does not belong to the ocean but to the starry skies. If the space beasts have a level, a Kuan is the best existence. This is similar to the dominance of the divine dragon clan over the sea creatures. Even if a Kuan cannot rule over the other space beasts, it is impossible to kill a space beast that is weaker than it, even if the number of the other party has reached an unbelievable level. Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. If the locusts were replaced by aquatic creatures, Wang Xian would dare to charge over. This was because as long as the level of the aquatic creatures was not higher than him, no matter how many aquatic creatures there were, they would not be able to kill him. This was the strength and prestige of a race at the peak of the universe. What is going on? That giant beast seems to be devouring the locusts. They are not in cahoots. Everyone below was slightly stunned when they saw the giant beast devouring the locusts, and they let out a sigh of relief. The members of the Dragon Palace immediately stopped when they saw this. Woo woo. In the sky, Little Blue opened its huge mouth and devoured the locusts every 10 seconds. Each time it did so, tens of millions of locusts would be devoured. In addition, countless space locusts were lying on Xiaolan's body and attacking him continuously. Only when the khaki energy on Xiaolan's body vibrated and when he opened his mouth could they sense that he was still alive. Otherwise, at a glance, they would think that he had been devoured by the space locust. Xiaolan's sudden appearance caused the space locusts to target Xiaolan. Countless space locusts surrounded Little Blue in the void. On Earth, when everyone saw this barbaric scene, they opened their mouths slightly. Is this the universe's starry sky? This is a heaven-defying space behemoth, an endless sea of insect. No wonder they can't cross the void before reaching the god realm. This is too terrifying. They all raised their heads to look at the sky, their hearts trembling. Look, that space beast seems to have doubled in size. An hour had passed, and many people's necks were stiff. However, at this time, they discovered that the space beast that had just appeared had doubled in size. The number of locusts that had been devoured by the space beast was at least tens of billions. Now, the space beast size had doubled, and the increase in size made the aura on the space beast even more terrifying. Moreover, the devouring speed had increased by 2 to 3 times. How terrifying is Xiaolan's strength now? Wang Xian was floating in the sky above the Dragon Palace. Looking at Xiaolan, who had increased in size, his face was filled with shock. With the doubling of his size, the increase in his strength was not as simple as doubling. With a huge body of 200 kilometers, if he were to hit the Earth, he would be able to send the Earth flying. What kind of monster is that? How can it be so terrifying? At this moment, Chen Feiyang, who was in the North Pole Divine Tomb, sensed the change in the void. He was shocked. His pupils constricted as he stared at Little Blue in the starry sky in fear. Ever since he obtained the God Lord's inheritance, This was the first time he felt a sense of fear, a strong sense of fear. It was as if the other party was his natural enemy. Why do I feel that before I become a god lord, I'm not a match for that space beast? I hope that fellow can leave this place as soon as possible. His pupils constricted as he muttered, "GG, GG." At this moment, about 3/5 of the massive swarm of locusts in the void had already been reduced. The locusts finally realized how terrifying Little Blue was. They let out panicked cries as they fled towards the void. Woo woo. Little Blue saw that the food wanted to escape, so it naturally did not agree. It opened its huge mouth and started to devour the food. GGG. The locusts that were close to Little Blue were devoured, while the locusts that were further away were fleeing for their lives. Xiao Lan swayed her current size of more than 200 kilometers and chased after her. She soon disappeared from everyone's sight. Chapter 2004. 2004. In 2004, all the female gods had become gods. Let's go. The space locusts have left, and so has that giant beast. In the void, the countless space locusts were frantically fleeing. When the incomparably terrifying space beast chased after them and left, everyone let out a heavy sigh. That space beast is too terrifying. It was actually able to cause the space locusts that covered the sky to flee. If it wasn't for that space beast, we might have been finished. I didn't expect the chaotic starfield to be so terrifying. That space beast can probably destroy Earth, right? I wonder if Dragon King and the others can fight against that space beast. There's actually such a huge beast in this universe. Dragon King and the others can't either. The space locusts that filled the sky were actually swallowed by a space beast. That beast is too strong. Everyone had looks of relief as they discussed. The appearance of the space locusts and space beasts gave them a hint of understanding of this universe. Soon, some people looked at the energy pillar above the North Pole Divine Tomb. They knew that it was all because of this energy pillar that attracted so many space locusts. That energy pillar could be said to be the main culprit. I wonder what happened in the North Pole Divine Tomb. Some people thought. All members of the Dragon Palace, take all the bodies of the space locusts to the Dragon Palace. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. The members of the Dragon Palace flew down and collected the bodies of the space locusts. Although these space locusts are not as evil as some demon beasts, they are demigod-level creatures after all. The materials and flesh on their bodies are rare treasures. The Dragon Palace must have killed at least billions of space locusts. They have made a fortune this time. At this moment, the disciples who followed the gods looked at the corpses on the ground with envy. This was an extremely precious treasure to them. Xiaoran, your Dragon Gate Academy should collect around 100 million locusts' corpses. Yes, Prime Minister Gui. At this moment, two more voices rang out in the sky. Dragon Gate Academy had participated in this battle, and the 4 gods of Dragon Gate Academy had each killed at least 10 million evil spirits. Dragon Gate Academy has obtained 100 million dead bodies. This, even if Dean Xiao and the others take out some, it will be enough to greatly improve Dragon Gate Academy. This. Dragon Gate Academy has the Dragon Palace behind it, and it will only become stronger and stronger in the future. Now, it seems that joining Dragon Gate Academy is the best choice. Unfortunately, it is a little difficult to join Dragon Gate Academy now. Envious voices sounded one after another. However, the students and disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy revealed excited expressions on their faces. They were undoubtedly number 1 now. This Xiao Lan has chased into the void. I wonder when she will return. Wang Xian was floating in the sky above the Dragon Palace. Looking at Xiao Lan, who had completely disappeared, he frowned slightly. Xiao Lan was a Kuan raised by Qingyu after all. Sometimes, it might not listen to him. Moreover, Wang Xian was unable to summon Xiao Lan back directly. Looks like I can only summon Xiao Lan back when Qingyu returns. Wang Xian shook his head slightly. Even if the Kuan raised by the master of the Kuan was thousands of light years away, the Kuan would rush over as soon as it was summoned. As for Xiao Lan, she wouldn't be able to run for long. Based on the instinct of the Kuan and Xiao Lan's current strength, it would require the strength of a godmaster to kill it. Dragon King, we have harvested quite a lot this time. There are at least 5 billion dead bodies of the space locusts. The lowest level of the space locusts has reached the level of a demigod. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui came over to report excitedly. These locusts are too low in converting dragon blood. Wang Xian looked at these locusts. They were the lowest level creatures of the same level, so the conversion rate of dragon blood was much lower. Dragon King, I tried it just now. Although it's very low, 100 million dead bodies are enough for our current members of the Dragon Palace to ignite the divine fire. This group of space locusts can double the strength of our Dragon Palace. Prime Minister Gui said excitedly. Oh, that's not bad at all. Wang Xian's eyes sparkled as he revealed a hint of excitement. The dragon transformation pool of the Dragon Palace had fused with the characteristics of the insect nest of the insect race. It was indeed heaven-defying when it was upgraded. Now, he could understand why the bloodline of the insect race could only be considered as ordinary in the universe. They were able to perish together with the divine dragon race, the peak race of the universe. The speed of the bug race's advancement was too terrifying. As long as there were enough resources, a bug race army could be quickly formed. Fortunately, the bug race has already perished. He thought to himself. The great battle ended so abruptly, and very quickly, members of the Dragon Palace brought billions of spoils of war to the Dragon Palace. Inside the dragon transformation pool, strands of dragon blood that were emitting a huge amount of energy flowed into it. When Earth reaches the boundless galaxy, the Dragon Palace will have more than 100 gods who can ignite the divine fire. Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. He was even more confident about stepping into the boundless galaxy. Dragon King. At this moment, Aonu's figure appeared beside Wang Xian. Aonu, why are you here? Wang Xian had arranged for Aonu to stay on the Transcendence continent to take care of Guan Shuqing and the other girls. When he saw that Wang Xian had returned, he was slightly surprised. Dragon King, the Dragon Queens are already preparing to ignite the divine fire. Let Aonu call out to you, Dragon King. Aonu reported to him. Ignite the divine fire? So fast? Wang Xian was slightly stunned. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. Let's go. We'll head there immediately. Without any hesitation, he rushed towards the extraordinary mainland. After entering the extraordinary mainland, Wang Xian arrived at the center of the Dragon and Phoenix Empire with a few teleportations. At the peak of the Ao Tian Mountain in the former Ao Shan Empire. When Wang Xian had just rushed over, he saw 11 figures floating in the sky. Back then, they had discovered a powerful formation at the peak of the Ao Tian Mountain. There were 11 futons there. Xu Qingyu and the others, who had been cultivating in seclusion for more than a year now, already possessed the ability to ignite the divine fire. The 11 of them floated in the sky, their bodies emitting an incomparably terrifying pressure. Countless people in the surrounding area looked at this scene, which was like a miracle. Their faces were filled with reverence. This was becoming a god. Moreover, it was their continent's empress and a group of empire's elders who ignited the divine fire together. They are still lacking the divine kingdom when they lit the divine fire. Fortunately, the Dragon Palace has prepared the divine kingdom for them in advance. Wang Xian looked at the saintly figures of Xu Qingyu and the rest of the girls. A smile appeared on his face. In the Dragon Palace, he had built a Dragon Queen Palace for the girls. He had modified it with the Dragon Cave and added the powerful materials from the other divine kingdoms. It was much stronger than the ordinary divine kingdoms. Wang Xian waved his arm and the divine kingdoms flew out one by one. Buzz. At this moment, the sounds of heaven and earth rang out. Wisps of divine fire appeared above their heads. The divine fire was ignited. Chapter 2005. 2005. In 2005, I am the dust. Our empress and the elders are about to become gods. Not long ago, it seemed like the Dragon King became a god. Now, the empress and the others have become gods. There are 11 gods. Is our Transcendence continent about to enter the era of Pantheon? Once the Empress and the others become gods, the continent will be more unified. Look, the Dragon King is there. Around the peak of the proud Heaven Mountain, Every citizen of the Dragon Phoenix Empire looked at the Empress and the others who were hovering 10,000 meters in the sky with deep respect. When they discovered the arrival of the Dragon King, their faces were filled with worship. The rise of the Dragon King, the might of the Dragon King, the power of the Dragon King, and other such books had been spread throughout the extraordinary continent. The deeds of the Dragon King had spread to every corner. Now that they saw the real person, everyone was filled with admiration and respect. Buzz, buzz, buzz. When Wang Xian threw the divine kingdoms towards them, the divine kingdoms immediately floated above their heads. In an instant, a powerful divine might enveloped a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. Chirp, chirp. A phoenix cry was emitted from the mouth of the phoenix and Phoenix Pass. Roar, roar, roar. Ice-cold roars came from Fan Qinglan and Xiao Yu's mouths. Behind them, the shadows of divine dragons and phoenixes flickered. The divine kingdom was raised high above their heads. The only difference was that behind Elian Qingyu, there was an empty black hole. Although the aura was not as vast as Shuqing and Xiao Yu's, it gave people a terrifying depth. Woo woo. A little blue's excited voice came from the black hole. The entire heaven and earth phenomenon and the huge aura lasted for a full 5 minutes. Below, everyone was already kneeling on the ground and worshipping respectfully. Xiao Xian, brother. After the group of girls became gods, they looked at Wang Xian and pounced over excitedly. Have you missed us after spending a year outside? Guan Shuqing and the rest surrounded Wang Xian and asked with smiles on their faces. What do you mean by spending a year outside? I'm here to help your wives, alright? Earth has already taken care of it. Wang Xian looked at the group of girls with an innocent look on his face. Humph, it better be like this. The group of girls glanced at her with disbelief on their faces. They had no choice. It was his fault for bringing a girl with him every time he went out. They couldn't be blamed for rolling their eyes. Hehe, I've already transferred the Dragon Palace to Earth. There's still a level 5 Dragon Palace left on the Transcendence continent. Let's go to the Dragon Palace on Earth later, Wang Xian said to them. Sure. The group of girls nodded and chirped. Congratulations to the Dragon Queen for becoming a god. Congratulations to the eldest princess and General Feng for becoming a god. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui, who had come over after hearing the news, congratulated them. Let's inform our family and ask them if they want to continue playing here or go back. The group of girls flew towards the foot of the lofty mountain peak where they were cultivating. I really didn't expect my daughter to actually become a god. Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingyu, and Tang Yinchuan's parents walked over excitedly. Wang Xian greeted them one by one with a smile on his face. Fengying, Jian we'll bring you guys to the planet where we live. It's very fun there too. The group of them chatted for a while before Guan Shuqing and the rest spoke to Zhong Fengying, Ling, and Jian. The two of them had never been to Earth. They had planned to take them there more than a year ago, but because of their cultivation, they were delayed. Okay, I also want to see what kind of place can give birth to a scumbag like Xiaoxian, Zhong Fengying said with a smile. Hehe, then I'll take you to see it. Sister Fengwan, let's go too. The group of girls said happily. They had just become gods, but they had completely transformed and were able to be together with Xiaoxian. Naturally, they were very happy. Wang Xian stood at the side speechlessly and did not listen to their conversation. He patted Xiao Yu's head and chatted with Feng Lingtian simply. Dragon King, come and take a look. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui walked over and said to Wang Xian in surprise. Huh? What's the matter? Wang Xian asked in surprise. Dragon King, please take a look at this starry sky map. Prime Minister Gui brought Wang Xian to the starry sky map again as he spoke. Dragon King, take a look. This starry sky map should belong to this star field. This is the starry sky map that we obtained from the Ling Xiao treasured palace from the borderline of the boundless star field to Earth. I realized that the borderline of this boundless star field actually overlaps with the starry sky map of the Transcendence continent. Prime Minister Gui pointed at the starry sky map on it and took out the starry sky map of the Ling Xiao palace. You mean that the Transcendence continent is in the boundless star field? Wang Xian raised his eyebrows. Yes, Dragon King. There's a 90% chance, unless one of the two starry sky maps is wrong. Prime Minister Gui nodded his head affirmatively. If that's the case, we can move Earth to the side of the Transcendence continent in the future. Wang Xian was deep in thought. Connecting the Transcendence continent and Earth was a good thing for both planets. When the time comes, we can bring Earth to the direction of the Transcendence continent. Wang Xian said to Prime Minister Gui. It's the Dragon King. Prime Minister Gui nodded his head. Xiao Xian, let's go back to Earth. At this moment, the voices of Shu Qing and the rest came from the side. Wang Xian turned around and nodded his head. All right, let's go back. Everyone immediately flew towards Earth. I was originally a speck of dust, but now, I can cover the stars. Just as Wang Xian and the rest were flying towards the Dragon Palace on Earth, a high and mighty voice suddenly rang out in the North Pole of Earth. The voice was not very loud, but everyone around the god's tomb could hear it clearly. At the same time, the energy beam that reached the sky in the North Pole of the god's tomb slowly dissipated. Ha! This power is enough to sweep across the entire Earth and the gods in the Temple of Heaven. This time, even the high and mighty gods have to grovel under my majestic body. On the main peak in the center of the god tomb, Chen Feiyang's face was filled with excitement. His 1,000-meter-long body was like a mountain, and his eyes were as bright as the stars. It's time to go out. I will make those who look down on me submit to my feet. When I return to the endless star area, I will make those fellows of my family kneel respectfully by my side. He muttered excitedly and slightly clenched his fists. Gigi. His body moved and a pair of wings made of space locusts appeared behind him. He gently flapped his wings and arrived in front of the mountain god Lord. Peng. Thank you, Master, for your inheritance. In the future, I will definitely spread the word mountain throughout the entire star area. He bowed respectfully, then slowly stood up and walked out of the divine tomb. As he walked, his body slowly shrank and turned into an ordinary person. The space locusts behind him also disappeared. I'm back. He looked outside and muttered. I was originally a speck of dust. I disappeared for a year and I'm back. Chapter 2006. 2006. In 2006, I was originally a speck of dust. Is this the current Earth? Why do I feel that this planet is emitting waves of vast power, even more vast than the extraordinary continent? On the ocean, when the group of girls arrived on Earth, all of them had shocked expressions on their faces. Even Feng Luan looked at the current Earth with a face full of awe. In particular, there were a few places that were emitting a power that shocked them. Earth is the center of an ancient battlefield. There is a divine tomb in the North and South Pole that even I can't enter. That is the tomb of the eternal God. The girls knew some basic information about Earth from home. Wang Xian said to them, Eternal Lord. The group of girls were filled with shock. They had just attained the divine throne and couldn't imagine how strong the Eternal Lord would be. Let's go. We'll go to the Dragon Palace to rest first. We'll tour Earth after resting for 2 days, Wang Xian said to them. The group of girls didn't say anything after hearing his words. Naturally, they knew what resting meant. Is this the level 6 Dragon Palace? It's so big. When they arrived in the sky above the Dragon Palace, the group of girls revealed a look of surprise. Oh right, Qingyu, Xiao Lan entered the void not long ago. Can you sense it? Wang Xian looked at Lan Qingyu and asked her. Yes, I can sense everything about Xiao Lan. It is currently playing happily in the void. If I want to call it, it can rush over in an instant. Let it play in the void. Lan Qingyu nodded with a smile. Xiao Lan's current strength is really beyond my expectations. Oh, how strong is Xiao Lan now? Wang Xian asked curiously. I don't know either. Xiao Lan doesn't have any hierarchy. I'm not too sure about the details. Lan Qingyu shook her head. Wang Xian nodded and led the group of girls into the Dragon Palace. Daddy. When Wang Xian and the rest entered the Dragon Palace, Hura's voice was heard immediately. At this moment, Wang Xian could feel a strong killing intent. The atmosphere turned solemn instantly. Hura and Xia also looked at Guan Shuqing and the rest who were beside Wang Xian. She frowned slightly and her eyes were sparkling. This is. Cold sweat appeared on Wang Xian's forehead. He had forgotten to tell the girls about Hua and Seo in advance. This is your mother's, he stammered as he spoke to Hua and Seo. However, the two girls did roll their eyes at him. A bunch of little girls. Hua pouted as she glanced at Guan Shuqing and the rest of the girls. This made Guan Shuqing and the rest of the girls' faces turn even darker. Come here, tell us what's going on. The group of girls walked into the bedroom with a dark face. They glanced at Wang Xian with murderous eyes. Hihi, let me explain. It's not what you think, Wang Xian said with a bitter face and immediately followed behind them. Timpate. The two girls snorted coldly at the side. When they saw them entering the bedroom upstairs, they immediately looked at Prime Minister Gui. Prime Minister Gui, who are those people? Hua asked with an unpleasant expression. This, little princess. Among those people, apart from one of them being the Dragon King's sister, the rest are all the Dragon Queens, Prime Minister Gui said with a slight bow. Dragon Queens? Are these all the wives of that big bastard? Hua widened her eyes and immediately said, Ahum, they are the Dragon King's wives. Our Dragon Queen, well, can be considered the Phoenix Empress. There are a total of 9 of them, Prime Minister Gui replied embarrassedly when he heard Hua's words. If others dared to call the Dragon King a big bastard, he might have made a move long ago, but there was nothing he could do. These two were little princesses. Although they were not real little princesses. I didn't expect this big bastard to be a big pervert with 9 wives. Our father only had one mother back then. This guy. Hua widened her eyes slightly. Her small face was filled with anger. They had 9 more mothers. How could this be possible? The two little girls looked at each other in displeasure. Their faces were filled with displeasure. At this moment, Wang Xian was kneeling on the washboard in his bedroom and explaining righteously. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the holy church were all destroyed by the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. The entire Dragon King of Earth has been suppressed for an entire lifetime. In an aerial restaurant in a city, a handsome young man was sitting there. He was holding a cell phone in his hand as he checked the various messages on it. There was a hint of surprise on his face. I didn't expect the Dragon King to be so powerful. There are actually dozens of gods in the Dragon Palace. TSK. He shook his head gently. A Dragon King. Do you want to meet him? It would be a good choice if I could take him as my subordinate. He knocked on the table and murmured. Taking the Dragon King as my subordinate? Brother, did I hear you right? There is something wrong with your mental state. Are you like dust and stars? At this moment, a mocking voice suddenly came from the side. Huh! The young man raised his eyebrows and looked indifferently at a young man who was mocking him. There were 4 or 5 people sitting beside the young man. At this time, they pointed at him and said in a low voice with some ridicule. Dust. Stars. Hee. The young man laughed when he heard his words and said faintly, I was indeed dust in the past. At least you know your place. When the young man in front heard his words, he said with a sneer. Hee, it's a pity that you have to prostrate at the feet of the dust in the past. As the young man spoke, he slowly stood up. Oh, why? The people on the opposite side slightly raised their eyebrows. The 5 people directly stood up and looked at him somewhat provocatively. Kneel down. The young man looked at them indifferently and shouted softly. He is indeed crazy. Hearing the young man's idiotic words, the 5 people on the other side laughed. One of them said. However, before he finished his words, he felt a great terror descending. They felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them. In an instant, the 5 people's faces revealed fear and despair. Crack, crack, crack. Their legs trembled as if they were about to break. Plop, plop. The sound of kneeling could be heard. Don't kill us. The sound of begging came from their mouths as the 5 of them growled with fear on their faces. They even found it extremely difficult to speak. The young man they mocked stood in front of them like a giant, making them feel extremely small. Hee. The young man laughed when he saw them kneeling in front of him. My name is Chen Feiyang. Soon, this name will cover the entire starfield. Remember it. The young man said indifferently as he slowly walked forward, flying in the air. Chen Feiyang? The five of them looked at his figure with fear in their eyes. Around them, in the restaurant in the sky, everyone looked at the five people kneeling there in surprise. Chapter 2007. 2007. In 2007, I was a speck of dust. I'm going to meet a few friends first. I wonder what kind of expression they will have when they find out about my current strength. 10,000 meters in the air, Chen Feiyang was walking in the air with a smile on his face. He took a step forward and covered a distance of several hundred kilometers. He was calm and carefree, and his body was emitting an aura of fear towards the world. Feiyang, we thought you guys were already dead. Where are you? He dialed a number of his former companions and a voice came from the other end. Hihi, I'll be there soon. Let's get together. Chen Feiyang said calmly. I'm participating in the Dragon Gate Academy's disciple assessment. Alright, let's not talk about it anymore. The Dragon Gate Academy's assessment officer will be here soon. The young man on the phone hurriedly hung up the phone. Dragon Gate Academy? Chen Feiyang listened to the busy tone on the phone and raised his eyebrows faintly. His gaze swept across his surroundings and his body moved, instantly disappearing. When his figure appeared, he was already standing at the entrance of a towering academy. At the entrance was an incomparably huge square. In front of the square stood tens of thousands of people. Noisy voices rang out. At a glance, all of them were existences above the profound void realm. Among them were quite a few former disciples of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Now, after obtaining the corpses of hundreds of millions of space locusts, the Dragon Gate Academy controlled an incomparably terrifying amount of resources. When the Dragon Gate Academy once again recruited disciples to prepare for the establishment of the fourth branch of the Dragon Gate Academy, countless people came to register to participate. Today was only the first day of the first batch of assessments. Wow, Chen Feiyang, why did you suddenly appear? Did you see me when you were on the phone just now? At this moment, a young man suddenly saw Chen Feiyang appear beside him. His face was shocked and he immediately walked over and said to him, You brat, you disappeared for a year. Why? Did you obtain any opportunities? The young man walked over, patted Chen Feiyang's shoulder, and said with a smile on his face, I got some opportunities. Chen Feiyang said indifferently, I can go. Are you also here to participate in the exam of Longmen Academy? The young man asked him with a smile. No, I'm mainly here to see your friend. Chen Feiyang shook his head and said indifferently, Hey, good brother. Haha, I hope I can join Longmen Academy today. The young man said with a smile and patted his shoulder heavily. Speaking of which, you're so much more handsome. TSK, I'm really envious. Move, move, move. At this moment, a voice came from behind. Everyone around was slightly stunned and quickly looked over. The sixth divine son, Ling Xingchen. It's him. I didn't expect him to join the Lingxiao treasured palace. Hiss, this is the sixth divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace. He should be at the third or fourth level demigod now, right? I didn't expect him to join the Dragon Gate Academy too. At this moment, the young man beside Chen Feiyang let out a shocked voice. The surrounding people were also surprised when they saw him. After all, the one who came was the divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Even though Ling Xiao was broken, his strength was still above everyone else. With Ling Xingchen's strength, he can easily join the Dragon Gate Academy. Feiyang, let's move aside. The youth beside Chen Feiyang pulled at him. Oh! Feiyang, quickly move aside. The youth noticed that Chen Feiyang was not moving at all and said anxiously, Why should we move aside? Chen Feiyang looked at the youth with a face full of smiles. Why should we move aside? Why did he, Chen Feiyang, come here to obtain the inheritance of the eternal God Lord? Of course, it was to look down on everything from above. Why did he come here? Naturally, it was to show off. If he didn't show off after obtaining the opportunity, what meaning would it have? To travel at night in embroidered clothes? It didn't exist. In the past, When he met the divine son of the Lingxiao treasured palace, he had to bow respectfully. Now, the other party had to kneel at his feet. When the young man heard Chen Feiyang's words, he was slightly stunned. His face was filled with astonishment. He felt that this friend of his had changed. Those in front, get out of the way immediately. Right at this moment, a voice with a hint of berating could be heard. The young man's expression changed slightly. He pulled Chen Feiyang's arm once again. Feiyang, get out of the way. We can't afford to offend you. Chen Feiyang ignored him and looked indifferently at the crowd behind him. Oh, what is this fellow trying to do? He actually dares to block Ling Xingchen's path. Even the ordinary disciples of Longmen Academy have to give Ling Xingchen some face, right? Is that guy stupid enough to stand in his way and look for trouble? The surrounding crowd saw Chen Feiyang, who happened to be in the middle, and said in a low voice, "No one has the right to make me move." At this moment, Chen Feiyang slightly raised his head and looked coldly at Ling Xingchen and the others behind him. His high and mighty tone caused everyone to be slightly shocked. "Oh, who are you?" At the back, Ling Xingchen was slightly stunned when he heard Chen Feiyang's words. His gaze was ice-cold as he looked at Chen Feiyang, who was somewhat pretentious. "He's just an ordinary small fry," Chen Feiyang said indifferently. However, everyone around could hear that this fellow was extremely pretentious. "Since you're just a small fry, then scram." When Ling Xingchen heard his words, his pupils constricted. A powerful aura that belonged to the demigod level directly charged towards Chen Feiyang. Plop. However, at this moment, Ling Xingchen's expression was extremely shocked. His body could not help but kneel towards the ground. A muffled sound caused him to directly kneel in front of Chen Feiyang. His face was filled with fear as he stared at Chen Feiyang in disbelief. "No one has the right to make me scram." Chen Feiyang's calm voice rang out once again. At this moment, everyone's faces were filled with shock. They stared at Chen Feiyang in shock. What's going on? It's that young man. His strength is definitely much stronger than Ling Xingchen. Hiss, no wonder he dares to be so disdainful towards Ling Xingchen. Who is he? How come I've never heard of this number one expert? The surrounding people revealed expressions of shock. The young man standing beside Chen Feiyang opened his mouth slightly, his face filled with shock. Hearing the surrounding voices and seeing the shock of his friends beside him, the corners of Chen Feiyang's mouth curled up slightly. This was an expert. All of this had just begun. He wanted to shock the entire world. "Everyone, quiet down." Right at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the entrance of Longmen Academy. "The powerhouse of Longmen Academy has come out." At this moment, everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they hurriedly looked forward. "Feiyang, I didn't expect that you would actually obtain an opportunity," the young man at the side whispered to him with a face full of shock. Chen Feiyang faintly nodded his head, but there wasn't the slightest change on his face. The young man's heart was extremely shaken, and his gaze also looked towards the front of the academy. In front of the Dragon Gate Academy, more than 10 figures were floating there. In the middle of them was Liu Mengxian, who was wearing a pure white skirt. "Look, Feiyang, that's Liu Mengxian." Back then, she was quite outstanding in the Lingxiao treasured palace, but now she's even more beautiful. She's Dean Xiao's younger sister, and her strength has already reached the peak of the demigod realm. She's a goddess. I heard that countless people are pursuing her now. TSK, I don't have a chance. Feiyang, you've obtained an opportunity, so you might have a chance. She's the type you like. The young man looked at Liu Mengxian in the middle, and a fiery light flashed in his eyes. Oh, peak of the demigod realm, she's indeed becoming more and more beautiful. Chen Feiyang looked at Liu Mengxian and raised his eyebrows. Liu Mengxian naturally knew that even in the past, with his strength, she was still a goddess to him. Not to mention that she had reached peak stage demigod and had a god as her brother. But now, the corner of his mouth curled up slightly. She's barely worthy of me. Chapter 2008. 2008 took over the sky. Barely worthy of me. A proud sentence came out of Chen Feiyang's mouth. The young man widened his eyes when he heard his words. The corner of his mouth could not help but twitch. He felt that Chen Feiyang was a little arrogant. Feiyang, this is Dean Xiao's sister. Dean Xiao is the only disciple of the Dragon King. If you can marry her, you will be rich, the young man said to Chen Feiyang speechlessly. It's her honor that I like her. However, the words that came next made the young man widen his eyes again. He turned to Chen Feiyang with a bitter smile and said, Brother, I know you have a fortuitous encounter, but you can't be so pretentious. He. The corner of Chen Feiyang's mouth curled up slightly. He stared at Liu Mengshan, who was in the sky above the gate of the Dragon Gate Academy, and stepped forward. His speed was very fast. The young man only felt his figure move before he directly disappeared before his eyes. When he looked forward, he immediately saw Chen Feiyang, who was hovering in the air in front of him. He opened his mouth slightly. Hey! At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the air above the entrance of Longmen Academy. He was staring at the disciples of Longmen Academy from afar, causing everyone to be slightly stunned. Liu Mengshan looked over in surprise when she saw Chen Feiyang suddenly appear. The current Liu Mengshan was the biological sister of God Xiao Ran, and she had the strength of a peak demigod. She was even able to enter the Dragon Palace freely and was able to speak with the Dragon King. Her status on Earth was unusually noble. It would not be long before she could ignite the divine fire. It wasn't an exaggeration to call her a goddess. Chen Feiyang floated in front of Liu Mengshan and sized her up. His face was filled with admiration and satisfaction. Not bad, not bad. He commented indifferently. Is this guy courting death? Although Chen Feiyang had seen how he easily suppressed Ling Xingchen and the others, he was now teasing Dean Xiao's sister. On Earth, this was simply courting death. Kid, you're courting death. I think you don't want your eyes anymore. Beside Liu Mengshan, a few disciples saw Chen Feiyang standing in front of them. His words were frivolous, and their faces revealed a cold expression. A middle-aged man waved his arm, and a stream of flames directly attacked him. Wang. Chen Feiyang waved his arm, and the flames were instantly extinguished. What? The group of Longmen Academy disciples were slightly shocked, and their eyes stared at Chen Feiyang warily. The group of people who had come to participate in the assessment were also slightly shocked. Is this young master here to participate in our Longmen Academy's assessment, or is he here to deliberately cause trouble? Liu Mengshan stared at Chen Feiyang, and asked with a frown. Not bad, you have the qualifications to become my woman. Chen Feiyang didn't answer her question, and the corners of his mouth curled up as he spoke. Wang. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure moved and instantly appeared beside Liu Mengshan. Just as Liu Mengshan's face was filled with shock, a hand grabbed her waist. You lecher, stop right there. Liu Mengshan cried out in shock. Her expression changed slightly, and her entire body trembled as the strength of a peak stage demigod was emitted. Haha, not bad, not bad. With the cultivation of a peak stage demigod, you should be able to ignite the divine fire very soon. Chen Feiyang laughed loudly. The aura on Liu Mengshan's body had no effect on him at all. What? Let go of our teacher Liu. The expressions of the surrounding disciples of Longmen Academy changed drastically when they saw this scene. They immediately shouted, You! Let go of me. Otherwise, my brother will not let you off. Liu Mengshan was caught by Chen Feiyang. Her face was slightly red and filled with anger. Is it that Xiao Ran? Haha, let alone Xiao Ran, even if the Dragon King came, it would be useless. Chen Feiyang said with a wanton smile, his face full of strong confidence. His words caused everyone around to reveal shocked expressions. Feiyang he. Below, when the young man saw this scene, his face was full of shock. Which reckless thing dares to cause trouble in our Dragon Gate Academy? At this moment, a powerful and dignified voice sounded from within Dragon Gate Academy. Big brother Shenfeng, save me. Liu Mengshan immediately cried out for help when she heard the voice. It's the vice principal of Shenfeng, the god who ignited the divine fire. The young master of the Protoss race in the past is now a god whose strength is comparable to 2 wisps of divine fire. That young man isn't simple either. He can easily control goddess Liu Mengshan, who is at the peak of the demigod realm. His strength has probably reached the deity realm as well. Sounds of astonishment rang out as a mysterious young man suddenly appeared. His powerful strength made goddess Liu Mengxian unable to move. Boom. Hearing Liu Mengxian's cry for help, a vast wave of pressure rushed over. Oh! A resurrected deity? Chen Feiyang looked over, a hint of interest appearing on his face. He gently raised his palm and slowly descended towards the divine peak that was flying over. A five-fingered mountain appeared in the sky and headed towards the divine peak to suppress it. Are you courting death? Do you know who you have captured? When the divine peak saw that the other party actually dared to attack him, a cold expression appeared on his face as he shouted sternly. At the same time, he waved his arm and a violent wave of energy attacked the five-fingered mountain. Boom. However, when his attack landed on the five-finger mountain, a shocked expression appeared on his face. His attack was instantly suppressed, and the five-finger mountain continued to press down on him. Break for me. At this moment, God Peak erupted with all his strength, and an even more terrifying attack attacked the five-finger mountain. Buzz. However, what shocked him was that even when his attack landed on the five-finger mountain, there was still not the slightest fluctuation. Boom. Suddenly, the five-finger mountain suddenly accelerated and directly pressed towards him. With a muffled loud sound, the five-finger mountain that was 1,000 meters in size landed in front of Dragon Gate Academy. At the position below, Shen Feng was directly suppressed below. His face was pale and filled with disbelief. This strength. This is impossible. Shen Feng muttered, filled with disbelief. What? At this moment, everyone's faces were filled with shock. The divine peak god of Dragon Gate Academy was actually easily suppressed by a single palm. You. What do you want to do? Liu Mengxian's expression changed drastically when she saw Chen Feiyang's terrifying strength. She stared at him and asked, "What do I want to do?" Chen Feiyang slightly raised his head and looked at the sky, overlooking everything around him. I, Chen Feiyang, the heir of the eternal godlord, am going to take over this sky, ha ha ha. As he spoke, he laughed wildly. In the sky above him, an incomparably huge mountain faintly appeared, suppressing the entire sky. The heir of the eternal godlord. Take over this sky. Chapter 2009. 2009. I shouldn't have been so arrogant in 2009. The inheritor of the eternal godlord. Is this for real? At the gate of Dragon Gate Academy, when everyone heard Chen Feiyang's words, shock appeared on their faces. They stared blankly at the divine peak god suppressing the gate of Dragon Gate Academy, and couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. The inheritance of the eternal god lord. Someone actually obtained the inheritance of the eternal god lord. This is the eternal god lord. How is this possible? Everyone was extremely shocked. More and more people were gathering around the city. Feeling the terrifying pressure from Chen Feiyang, everyone's faces were filled with fear. This was especially so when Chen Feiyang used his palm to suppress the divine peak god. No one doubted that his words were fake. Eternal God Lord. You. When Liu Mengxian heard his words, her face was filled with shock as she stared at him in disbelief. Hihi, how is it? Don't you feel honored? Chen Feiyang looked at Liu Mengxian with a smile on his face. All of you, go and inform all the gods in Dragon Gate Academy. Also, inform the Dragon King to have all of them come and worship me. As he spoke, he looked down and said faintly, I will wait for them here. Chen Feiyang said as he held Liu Mengxian's waist and flew directly towards the highest principal's office of Dragon Gate Academy. To have the Dragon King come to worship him, what a big tone. How confident is he to have the Dragon King and the others come to worship him? Is this the confidence that the eternal God Lord passed down to him? To be able to easily suppress a god with one palm, it seems extremely easy. Just how strong is he? Everyone was shocked when they saw Chen Feiyang and Liu Mengxian fly into the Dragon Gate Academy to wait for the Dragon King and the others. No one expected that someone would actually obtain the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. This news quickly spread on the internet. When everyone saw the God Peak God being suppressed at the foot of the Five-Finger Mountain, they were slightly dazed. This person is called Chen Feiyang. He was once a disciple of the Lingxiao treasured palace. He disappeared for a year. I didn't expect him to be so powerful now. Back then, Chen Feiyang was very weak. Now, he can easily suppress a god. The inheritance of an ordinary god is definitely not this powerful. It seems that he really obtained the inheritance of the God Lord. Eternal God Lord. Currently, only the two tombs in the North and South Poles are known to be the divine kingdom of the Eternal God Lord. Did he come from one of these two tombs, or? Soon, someone on the internet dug out the information about Chen Feiyang, which shocked many people. From a small figure at the insightful void level, he could easily suppress the gods after going missing for a year. This was definitely the inheritance of the Eternal God Lord. However, no one knew how powerful Chen Feiyang was now. At the other two academies of Dragon Gate Academy, Consort Jiran and another god, Tian Yuanzi, who had received the news, immediately rushed over. At the same time, in the sky above the Dragon Palace, 9 beautiful figures were floating there with a hint of frost on their faces. Let's go out and relax. Let that pervert reflect on himself. The 9 of them were Guan Shuqing and the rest of the women who came out from the Dragon Palace's bedroom. At this moment, their expressions were extremely cold. Although Wang Xian had explained to them earlier, would they believe the words of this pervert? In a fit of anger, the 9 women flew out of the Dragon Palace. Where should we go first? Now that earth and land have become one, even we feel unfamiliar. Lan Qingyu looked around and said faintly, I still have a little disciple here. Let's go find her first and let her show us around. Sun Lingxiu looked at the group of girls and said, Is it that girl Mengshan? Alright, let's go and take a look. Speaking of which, we haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. That girl should have grown up by now. Guan Shuqing and the rest nodded immediately. Let's go. I can still sense the aura of my little disciple, Sun Lingxiu said with a smile. The 9 girls immediately teleported away. Sigh. In the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian shook his head speechlessly as he watched the 9 girls leave. Why don't they believe what I said? I'm telling the truth. Wang Xian felt a headache coming on. At this moment, he didn't dare to provoke the girls. It would be fine if it was just one of them, but he could force them to beg for forgiveness. But now, it was a group of girls, especially since they were still united. Forget it, forget it. It's better to hide now. Wang Xian muttered softly. He was not worried about the safety of the few girls. With Lan Qingyu around, no one could hurt them. Furthermore, no one dared to provoke the Dragon Palace. He moved and immediately flew towards the Dragon King's palace. What exactly do you want? In the principal's office at the center of the Dragon Gate Academy, Liu Mengshan was sitting in front of a table. She looked at Chen Feiyang, who was full of arrogance, and asked with an embarrassed expression. Didn't I say it? Take over the entire sky. For your sake, as long as your brother and the Dragon King worship me, I will not make things difficult for them. Chen Feiyang slightly raised his head and looked at Liu Mengshan indifferently. With just you, even if you obtained the inheritance of the Eternal God Lord, you're still not a match for teacher, Liu Mengshan said with a dark face. Ha 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 ha, then wait a while, I'll let you see how the Dragon King kneels in front of me, Chen Feiyang said with a laugh. Oh, coming, only 3? At this moment, he gently raised his eyebrows and looked outside. Dean. Outside, Tian Yuanzi, Xiao Ran, and Ji Lingfei arrived above the second Dragon Gate Academy. They looked at the divine peak that was suppressed at the entrance, and their expressions were somewhat solemn. Save the divine peak. As Xiao Ran spoke, the 3 of them immediately moved and attacked the 1,000-meter-wide 5-Finger Mountain. Boom boom boom. The 3 attacks landed on the 5-Finger Mountain. However, what shocked them the most was that the 5-Finger Mountain did not move at all. What? Rise. Xiao Ran's expression changed slightly. He waved his arm and the 8 divine fire pagoda in his hand crashed towards the 5-Finger Mountain. Boom. There was a loud sound. However, what made Xiao Ran's expression extremely grave was that the 5-Finger Mountain still did not move at all. Hiss, this. His pupils constricted slightly, and Tian Yuanzi and Ji Lingfei's expressions also changed slightly. Divine Peak, You have to suffer here for a while. They looked at each other and immediately flew towards the center of the academy. This mountain is so terrifying that even Dean Xiao and the others can't break it. Hiss, looks like the Dragon King is going to make a move. I just don't know if the Dragon King and the others are a match for this Chen Feiyang. When everyone around saw this scene, their expressions changed drastically. With just you guys, you won't be able to break my mountain suppression. In the center of Dragon Gate Academy, when Xiao Ran and the others had just flown over, the window automatically opened and Chen Feiyang's faint voice sounded. Chapter 2010. 2010. I shouldn't have been so arrogant in 2010. What do you want to do? Xiao Ran heard the voice and immediately looked into the room. When he saw that Liu Mengxian was not in danger, he heaved a sigh of relief. His gaze was fixed on Chen Feiyang, and his eyes were filled with coldness. Xiao Ran, right? Where's your master, the Dragon King? Let him come and worship me. In the future, this starfield will respect me. Chen Feiyang looked at Xiao Ran and the other two calmly and said faintly, worship you? You can't afford it. When Xiao Ran heard his words, a dense expression appeared on his face. He slowly lifted the 8 divine fire pagoda in his hand. Hee, you're too stubborn. I'll teach you a lesson. When Chen Feiyang heard his words, he raised his hand. A 5-fingered mountain appeared in the sky above Xiao Ran. The 1,000-meter-wide 5-fingered mountain emitted a heavy aura as it directly pressed down on him. Stop. Liu Mengxian, who was sitting there, had a slight change in her expression. A bright arrow appeared in front of her and directly attacked Chen Feiyang. Chen Feiyang glanced indifferently at Liu Mengxian. No one can defy me. Bang! The terrifying 5-fingered mountain fell towards Xiao Ran, causing his expression to change drastically. The 8 divine fire pagoda in his hand released a terrifying flame as it attacked the 5 mountains. However, the flames did not leave any traces on the 5 mountains. This caused Xiao Ran's expression to change drastically. Tian Yuanzi, Ji Lingfei, immediately made his move. The 5 mountains remained unmoved. Oh no, his strength is too terrifying. Ji Lingfei shouted in fear, no, we have to contact teacher immediately. Boom. The 5 mountains descended and Xiao Ran was directly suppressed below. His face was completely pale. When the surrounding people who had been paying attention to this scene saw this, they once again took a deep breath. They were filled with shock. Another casual attack had suppressed Principal Xiao, who was holding a divine weapon. Is Chen Feiyang's strength invincible? Everyone looked at this scene in shock. When this scene was spread on the internet, the entire world was boiling. The inheritor of the eternal God Lord was so terrifying. At this moment, some people were shaken. Perhaps the inheritor of the eternal God Lord could suppress the Dragon Palace. Too weak. Chen Feiyang looked at Xiao Ran, who was being suppressed, and said indifferently, let go of my brother. Liu Mengxian roared with fury in her eyes. If they all submit to me, I'll naturally let them go. Chen Feiyang glanced at Liu Mengxian and said indifferently, Principal Ji, we can only inform the Dragon King now. Tian Yuanzi took a deep breath when he saw this scene and looked at Chen Feiyang with a face full of fear. Ji Lingfei nodded slowly. Buzz. Just as she was about to inform the Dragon King, the surrounding void trembled slightly. Oh! The Dragon King has received the news. Tian Yuanzi immediately looked over with a hint of joy in his eyes. Is he here? Chen Feiyang also narrowed his eyes slightly and looked towards the direction where the void was shaking. Soon, figures appeared in their sight one by one. Hey! Something seems to have happened here. A surprised voice was heard. Guan Shuqing and the other 9 figures appeared and looked around. Hey! Chen Feiyang looked at the 9 extremely beautiful women who suddenly appeared and raised his eyebrows slightly. Master's wife, Master's wife. Xiao Ran, who was suppressed underground, raised his head and saw their figures. He was slightly stunned and immediately shouted, Master. When Liu Mengxian saw Sun Lingxiu, her expression was slightly dazed. She also immediately shouted, Oh! Chen Feiyang looked over and sized up Guan Shuqing and the others. Little Xiao Ran, what happened? Guan Shuqing and the others were slightly stunned. They looked at Xiao Ran, who was being suppressed, and frowned. Lan Qingyu waved her hand casually. However, she found that the five-finger mountain did not move at all. Surprise appeared in her eyes. A special khaki-colored power on her body shook slightly and shook toward the five-finger mountain. Buzz! A special power directly moved the mountain to the side. A godly state expert. Chen Feiyang was surprised when he saw Lan Qingyu move his mountain away. "Thank you, mistress." Xiao Ran let out a sigh of relief when he got away from the mountain. He glanced at his mistress and a few unfamiliar figures and bowed. "Mengxian, come here." Sun Lingxiu waved her arm and a powerful light force was drawn toward Liu Mengxian. With a flash of light, it immediately caught her in front of him. "Master!" Liu Mengxian excitedly grabbed Sun Lingxiu's arm and shouted. "What happened?" Guan Shuqing coldly glanced at Dust's Feiyang and asked Xiao Ran and the others. "The Dragon King's wife. I asked the Dragon King to come and worship me, and you girls came?" Dust's Feiyang slightly raised his head and did not stop Sun Lingxiu and the others. He said coldly. He had lost some of his patience. "Worship you? What qualifications do you have?" Guan Shuqing coldly spoke to him as the aura of a god erupted from her body. Boom! 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 At this moment, the other girls also coldly stared at Chen Feiyang. Their faces were filled with ice-cold expressions. The girl's current strength was enough to contend against 2 wisps of divine fire. This was especially true for Fan Qinglan and Lan Qingyu. Fan Qinglan had a special bone dragon body, and Lan Qingyu, as an ancient god-feeding Kuan master, was also extremely terrifying. The two of them were able to contend against or even kill 3 wisps of divine fire gods. Terrifying auras soared into the sky and charged towards the dust. In an instant, the entire sky was filled with wind and clouds, and the faint image of a divine dragon appeared. Who are the 9 beautiful figures that suddenly appeared? This. Dean Xiao actually called them Master's wife. Are they the Dragon King's wives? Hiss, the 9 figures all burst out with the power of the divine realm. I didn't expect that the Dragon King's wives had already ignited the divine fire. Are they here to suppress that dust flying around? In the surrounding areas, some people noticed the sudden appearance of the illusory figures in the middle of the Dragon Gate Academy, and their faces revealed astonishment. 9 beautiful figures, the Dragon Queen? This caused everyone to be slightly stunned. However, as they felt the powerful divine might, they were all extremely shocked. Ha ha ha, looks like it's really difficult to invite the Dragon King over. In that case, I'll announce that today, I'll be taking over this piece of sky. If anyone resists, I'll suppress them. I really want to see what that Dragon King is capable of. Chen Feiyang's gaze swept past Guan Shuqing and the other girls with disdain, not paying any attention to their imposing manner. At the same time, his body moved and he directly floated in the sky above Longmen Academy. Chen Feiyang spread his arms, and the divine dragon phantom in the sky instantly disappeared. GGGG. At the same time, a sharp and ear-piercing sound rang out, and countless starry locusts flew out from his body and flew in all directions. In an instant, the starry locusts that blotted out the sun appeared in the void once again. Seeing this scene, everyone's bodies trembled. Chapter 2011. 2011. I shouldn't have been so arrogant in 2011. At this moment, everyone on Earth began to tremble again. The familiar shrill cry covered the entire planet, and the horrifying and ferocious space locusts once again wreaked havoc. Dust flew in the sky, and countless space locusts flew out of his body and flew around. 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion. 5 billion space locusts, each 2 to 3 meters in size, blocked the sky. This scene was very similar to the day when the space locusts rampaged. Everyone looked at the space locusts in fear. If it weren't for the appearance of the space beast, many people doubted whether the Dragon Palace could resist so many space locusts. Although there weren't as many space locusts flying out of Chen Feiyang's body as before, there were at least billions of them. The scene that also covered the sky shocked everyone. He must have obtained the inheritance of the North Pole Godly Tomb. The space panicked and entered the North Pole Godly Tomb through the energy pillar. It turns out that he subdued him. It's him. Chen Feiyang must have obtained the inheritance of the North Pole Divine Tomb. Oh my God, those starry sky locusts were attracted by him at that time. So the North Pole Divine Tomb obtained the greatest opportunity from him, the inheritance of the mountain god Lord. Not long ago, a voice rang out from the North Pole Divine Tomb. I was originally a speck of dust, but now, I've covered the stars. At this moment, some people quickly thought of what had happened when the starry sky locusts had just appeared. Moreover, the voice from the North Pole Divine Tomb not long ago immediately made everyone more certain. The successor of the North Pole Divine Tomb, dust flew in the air. Back then, the North and South Pole Divine Tombs had attracted the attention of the entire world. Billions of people from the world had once gone to the North and South Pole Divine Tombs to seek opportunities. However, no one had expected that the greatest opportunity of the North Pole Divine Tomb, the successor of the Master God's inheritance, had now been revealed to the world. Everyone looked at the starry sky that was covered by the space locusts in awe. At this moment, the world shook. He provoked the Dragon King. He does have the right. He might even take over the sky for real. Some people murmured and looked at the sky in shock. 5 billion space locusts. Just this many space locusts required the Dragon Palace to mobilize all of its strength. And this was under the condition that Chen Feiyang didn't make a move. If he made a move, wouldn't he be able to suppress the Dragon Palace? Was he really going to take over the sky? Not good. He is the one who obtained the inheritance of the North Pole God Tomb, and he has so many space locusts. Tian Yuanzi's face changed dramatically when he saw this. He could feel how small he was in front of these 5 billion space locusts. Oh no! Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, and the others' faces changed dramatically, and their eyes were filled with a solemn expression. Master, be careful. We're not his match. Liu Mengxin's heart also sank, and she hurriedly said to Sun Lingxiu. Sun Lingxiu, Xu Qing, Feng Wan, and the other girls felt the overwhelming pressure, and their faces also revealed a solemn and shocked expression. This was the first time they were facing so many creatures, and it was also the first time they were facing this space locust. They could sense that they were absolutely not a match for this space locust. Even when facing that youth, they had to be extremely fearful. What should we do? Call that pervert little Xian over? Guan Shuqing said with a slightly embarrassed expression. No need. We don't need to rely on him. Chempate. Lan Qingyue's eyes sparkled as she stared at the space locusts in the sky. She snorted coldly. Clearly, the group of girls had not completely forgiven Wang Xian. Sisters, let's enter the void. Lan Qingyu waved her arm. A black hole appeared in front of her and she stepped into it directly. Enter. The other girls didn't hesitate. They knew Lan Qingyue's ability. Follow her. Sun Lingxiu said to Liu Mengxin and Xiao Ran, and she led Mengxin into the black hole. Let's go. Xiao Ran pulled Ji Lingfei, who was extremely surprised, and Tian Yuanzi, who was beside her, into the black hole. Buzz. When they appeared again, they were already in the void above the space locust. Chen Feiyang, who had been watching Guan Shuqing and the others from below, raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw them disappear into the black hole. Did you run away? Hehe, do you want me to go to the Dragon Palace personally? He said indifferently, his voice spreading across the entire sky. Everyone below opened their mouths slightly and watched in shock. Run. You don't have the right to let us run. At this moment, Lan Qingyue's cold voice rang out in the air. Hehe, looks like I'll have to completely suppress all of you. Chen Feiyang's eyes revealed a cold expression. He raised his head slightly and the space locusts in the sky took the initiative to open up a path. Buzz. Following that, under everyone's shocked gazes, his body slowly grew larger. At a speed visible to the naked eye, his body, which was less than 2 meters long, grew to several thousand meters in size. An aura that was as heavy as a mountain and as tall as a mountain was emitted from his body. His body gave people a feeling that it was like a mountain. GGGG. Tens of millions of space locusts flew behind him and condensed into a pair of enormous locust wings. Chen Feiyang slowly flew into the void. Hiss. Below, everyone looked at this scene in horror. This posture is really invincible. Everyone took a deep breath and stared at the void. Unfortunately, the space locusts that filled the sky completely covered their vision. Bloodline constitution, my pet loves it the most. Lan Qingyu saw Chen Feiyang's body that was thousands of meters long fly hundreds of thousands of meters into the air, and a cold expression appeared on her face. Master, that Chen Feiyang is very strong. Liu Mengxin saw Chen Feiyang's power and said to Sun Lingxiu with a worried expression. Sun Lingxiu shook her head at her, indicating that there was no need to worry. I don't like to kill women, but I will suppress all of you and the Dragon King. Chen Feiyang stared at Guan Shuqing and the others coldly and waved his arm lightly. Eternal Mountain. With a low roar, an incomparably huge mountain appeared in the void. The mountain was tens of thousands of meters long and was even more terrifying than the one that suppressed Xiao Ran and the others. When they saw this mountain, Xiao Ran and the others' faces were filled with solemnity and worry. Little Blue, get ready to eat. Lan Qingyu stared at Chen Feiyang, and her body trembled slightly. Woo woo. An incomparably dull sound rang out of thin air. Slowly, a black hole that was over 100 kilometers in size appeared behind Lan Qingyu. A terrifying head slowly drilled out of the black hole. It was filled with excitement as it stared at the surrounding space locusts, staring at Chen Feiyang, bloodline physique and so on. Kuan favorite. Chapter 2012. 2012 begged for mercy. Woo woo. In the void, within 100-kilometer radius of the black hole, an incomparably huge figure stretched out. After it swept past the space locusts and dust fluttering in the air, its gaze looked at Lan Qingyu in front of it and let out a faint coquettish sound. You've grown up, you're even a little fat. Lan Qingyu's face was full of smiles as she touched the area under its eyelids. A trace of a smile appeared on her face. When she was in seclusion, Little Blue's body was only dozens of kilometers in size. Now, it was more than 300 kilometers in size. Moreover, its entire body looked a little bloated and much fatter. It could be seen that Little Blue's food was very good during this period of time. Soon, it's time to eat again. As Lan Qingyu said this, she gently jumped onto Little Blue's body and stared at the stunned dust flying in front of her. This is Little Blue. The Little Blue from before. Hiss, the space beast that day was actually the Dragon King's wife's pet. At this moment, Tian Yuanzi, Xiao Ran, and Ji Lingfei, who were standing at the side, had shocked expressions on their faces. This was especially so for Tian Yuanzi and Ji Lingfei. This was the first time they had seen Lan Qingyu and the others. On the day when the space locusts were wreaking havoc, the space beast that had suddenly appeared was actually the pet of the Dragon Queen of the Dragon Palace. This news was simply too shocking. The Dragon Palace is too heaven-defying. Each and every one of their trump cards is completely unfathomable. Tian Yuanzi couldn't help but feel fortunate for his choice at that time. Now, it seemed that even if they were twice as powerful, they might not be able to do anything to the Dragon Palace, let alone the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall. Cough cough. However, at this moment, Chen Feiyang, who had a majestic and invincible look on his face, had a drastic change in expression. He widened his eyes and stared at Little Blue in front of him in disbelief. What the hell? When he was in the Divine Tomb, he had seen this space beast, especially after it had swallowed hundreds of billions of space locusts. At that time, he had a strong premonition that he was no match for this space beast. At that time, the space beast's size was only 200 kilometers, and now it had increased by more than 100 kilometers. He would never have thought that this space beast was actually the Dragon King's wife's pet. Escape, this is too dangerous, escape into the Divine Tomb. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Chen Feiyang was panicking. He had just received the inheritance of the Eternal God Lord, and now he had ignited 7 wisps of divine fire. Coupled with his special physique, he was confident that he could look down on everything. Even if he returned to the boundless starfield, he was still a figure in the entire starfield. At that time, everyone in the family who looked down on him would have to kneel respectfully in front of him. But now, he had encountered such a terrifying existence. He didn't want to die. It wasn't easy for him to obtain the inheritance of the Eternal God Lord. If he died, he wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Eternal mountain, starry locust. He waved his arm, and the mountain in the sky smashed towards Little Blue. At the same time, hundreds of millions of starry locusts flew towards Little Blue. Go! After releasing his attack, he flapped his huge wings without any hesitation and fled towards the North Pole. He escaped. Liu Mengxian, Tian Yuanzi, Xiao Ran, and the others saw Chen Feiyang escape and opened their mouths slightly. That extremely arrogant guy who wanted to suppress all of them, the inheritor of the eternal God Lord, actually escaped after attacking. This was completely different from his invincibility just now. Little Blue, don't let him escape, Lan Qingyu immediately said when she saw that he wanted to escape. Buzz. Little Blue's body trembled slightly, and the black hole behind him expanded at a terrifying speed. In a short moment, the black hole instantly covered the entire void, covering all the space locusts and Chen Feiyang's bodies. What is this thing? When Chen Feiyang was enveloped by the black hole, a shocked expression appeared on his face. Soon after, everyone felt that they had appeared in another void. On Earth, when everyone looked at the sky, they instantly realized that everything had disappeared. The sky returned to its previous state. What happened? Why did everything disappear? What happened in the void? Why did everything disappear? Everyone looked at this scene in shock. The space locusts that blotted out the sky disappeared, and so did the tall and sturdy Chen Feiyang. Even the Dragon Queen and Dean Xiao of the Dragon Palace had disappeared. Is this the divine ability of the eternal God Lord? Some people murmured. It was very difficult for a godly state expert to do such a terrifying scene. Only an existence like the eternal God Lord could do it. Did Chen Feiyang suppress Dean Xiao and the others, or? They were full of doubts. What? What is this place? What is this place? Wait, don't attack. However, what everyone didn't know was that at this moment, in the Kuan region, Chen Feiyang was looking around with a panicked expression. In a pitch-black void space, there seemed to be no end. In this place, there was only the group of them. In front of them was that incomparably huge space beast. Around them were his 5 billion space locust. This was the first time Chen Feiyang had encountered such a place. After all, he was only a small character at the insightful void realm. He had not experienced too many battles. He had become a god who had ignited 7 wisps of divine fire in a single leap. His knowledge had not increased much. Even if it was the mountain god lord's inheritance, he had not completely absorbed it. At this moment, he was completely panicking. In the end, he was a nouveau riche who had suddenly erupted. Woo-woo. Little Blue did not pay any attention to Chen Feiyang. It opened its mouth slightly, and the entire space trembled slightly. GGG. At this moment, the group of starry locusts behind him revealed a terrified expression. Tens of millions of starry locusts were sucked into Little Blue's mouth. Damn it. If you have something to say it properly. Chen Feiyang quickly shouted. Lan Qingyu and the others stared at him coldly, their faces full of mockery. Didn't you want to suppress us? Guan Shuqing's lips curled up slightly as she asked indifferently. Woo-woo. As soon as she finished speaking, the surrounding space trembled again. Xiao Lan let out a joyful sound as hundreds of millions of space locusts flew towards Xiao Lan's mouth. Chen Feiyang's expression changed drastically as he stared fixedly at Little Blue. He could feel a thick sense of threat from Little Blue's body. His gaze swept across the surrounding void as he clenched his fists tightly. Everyone, I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so arrogant. Look, I didn't hurt you. Can we shake hands and make peace? Chen Feiyang clenched his teeth and said loudly with a dark face. He didn't want to die because he had just received the God Lord's inheritance. After receiving all the inheritance, he had a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. If he died today, he would suffer a great loss. Chapter 2013. 2013 begged for mercy. It was not that Chen Feiyang was cowardly, but that he was facing a void behemoth like Little Blue, which made him feel extremely fearful. Now that he was trapped in the void, it was already considered good that he did not shout for mercy. Having just obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord, He had just started to show off and was about to fall into a life-and-death situation. This was obviously not what he wanted to see. Shake hands and make peace. Didn't you say that you were going to suppress us? Guan Shuqing and the others were slightly stunned when they heard Chen Feiyang's words, and they said mockingly. This was the first time they had met such a cowardly fellow. He wanted to shake hands and make peace even before the fight had officially begun. I'm joking. Chen Feiyang felt a little humiliated at this moment. However, when he saw the surrounding space locusts entering Little Blue's body one after another, his heart ached terribly. He said with a dark face, "Are you kidding me? If you're kidding me, then we'll suppress you." It's also a joke. Sun Lingxiu looked at him and said lightly, I'm pursuing him. I didn't hurt her, Chen Feiyang said with an extremely embarrassed expression. It's useless to say so much. If we kill you, the divine tomb at the North Pole will belong to us. Moreover, Xiaolan's favorite food is people with a special physique like you. Lan Qingyu stared at him coldly and said, You. Don't force me. Chen Feiyang revealed an angry expression when he heard Lan Qingyu's word. It's already a life-and-death battle, and you still want to force me? What a childish guy. Feng Luan looked at Chen Feiyang with contempt in her eyes. Even though her strength was much weaker than Chen Feiyang's, her aura and posture as an expert were much stronger. This was the posture of an expert who came up from the bottom step by step. It was fine if Chen Feiyang was in front of the weak, but in front of an expert, there was no foundation. Little Blue, attack. Lan Qingyu lightly shouted. Woo woo. A shocking sound was heard. Little Blue stared at Chen Feiyang, and its huge body directly collided with him. Don't provoke me. I have a mountain body, and I use my body to cross the void. A space beast, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Chen Feiyang heard Feng Luan's ridicule and saw Little Blue who was attacking him. His face revealed a violent expression. His body size crazily increased once again. His muscles bulged high and his body size reached over 10,000 meters. His entire person was like a mountain that ran amok in the void. Get lost. He clenched his fists. His mountain-like arm emitted an earthen yellow light as he heavily met Xiao Lan. Boom. A terrifying collision sounded. At this moment, Chen Feiyang knew what it meant to be a mantis trying to stop a chariot. An extremely terrifying power attacked him, and cracks slowly appeared on his arm. His entire body flew backwards. At this moment, Chen Feiyang's face was completely filled with panic. As the inheritor of the mountain physique, he was most proud of his powerful physical strength. However, in the face of this space beast, his strongest physical strength was completely crushed. This caused Chen Feiyang to be completely terrified. Pu. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his body flew backwards. Little Blue's body trembled. He moved his huge body and continued to attack him. I admit defeat. I surrender. I admit defeat. Don't kill me. Chen Feiyang looked at Little Blue who continued to attack him and hurriedly shouted. Is there any use in begging for mercy? Lan Qingyu said indifferently. Sisters, I was wrong. I was really wrong. It wasn't easy for me to obtain the God Lord's inheritance. There are still some treasures in the God tomb. I'll give them all to you. Chen Feiyang hurriedly dodged to the side and shouted loudly. However, what made him feel terrified was that this empty space seemed to be a circular shape. He was actually unable to fly out of this space. This made him even more panicked. I surrender. I surrender. Don't kill me, Beauty Liu Mengxian. I didn't hurt you at that time. Tell your master and the others to stop. I admit my mistake. Chen Feiyang saw that Lan Qingyu was unmoved. His body once again collided with Little Blue's. He felt an incomparable pain in his chest and immediately shouted loudly. This. Liu Mengxian looked at Chen Feiyang's pathetic escape, and her face was full of astonishment. At first, when Chen Feiyang forcefully restrained her, he said that it was her honor to have taken a fancy to her, but now, this look was completely different. But there was one thing that he was right about, and that was that he didn't hurt her from the beginning. Master, this. Liu Mengxian looked at her own son Lingxiu and wanted to say something, but she stopped herself. Sun Lingxiu also raised her eyebrows slightly. She looked at Chen Feiyang, who was begging for mercy, and called out to Ellen Qingyu softly, "Qingyu, buzz." Lan Qingyu moved slightly, and Xiao Lan stopped moving. Her huge eyes were still locked on him with incomparable coldness. Thank you all goddesses. I admit my mistake. I surrender." Chen Feiyang saw that Little Blue had finally stopped, and he panted heavily as he said immediately, "Take us to the North Pole God Tomb." Lan Qingyu said to Chen Feiyang calmly, Yes, I will take you there now." Chen Feiyang nodded with a bitter face, resigned to his fate. "Before that, eat this." Lan Qingyu moved her hand and took out an item that looked like meat from Little Blue's body, and threw it directly in front of Chen Feiyang. This is. Chen Feiyang looked at the wriggling meat ball and his expression changed slightly. "Little Blue's special constitution will take root in your constitution. If you have any thoughts, I can destroy you instantly." Lan Qingyu said to him very honestly. This. Chen Feiyang's expression changed greatly. "Die now. Swallow this and choose one." Lan Qingyu did not give him any time to hesitate. She directly said indifferently. He begged for mercy, but in order to prevent any accidents, he had to leave some methods behind. After he swallowed Little Blue's Kuan characteristic, it would enter his mountain constitution. In the future, with just a thought from Lan Qingyu, he could instantly die. "I'll swallow." Chen Feiyang took a deep breath, his heart filled with sorrow. He still wanted to suppress the world and take over the sky, but now he was being suppressed. Perhaps he was the most miserable eternal God Lord inheritance holder in the universe. Chen Feiyang swallowed the flesh with an ugly expression. "Let's go." Lan Qingyu saw him swallow and looked at Guan Shuqing and the others. "Let's go. I haven't seen what the eternal God Lord's eternal kingdom looks like." "This is the eternal God Lord." Guan Shuqing and the other girls looked interested and immediately said, "Lead the way." Lan Qingyu patted Little Blue and said to Chen Feiyang, "Yes." Chapter 2014. 2014, Shake Hands and Make Peace? GGG. In the sky above Earth, while everyone was still discussing what had just happened, in the next moment, the densely packed space locusts once again appeared in the void. Unlike the space locusts from before, the number was clearly reduced by 1/5. What's going on? The appearance of the space locusts once again caused everyone's faces to reveal astonishment. Immediately after, under everyone's stunned gazes, the countless void locusts flew towards the north. What's going on? The void locusts have appeared once again? Everyone's faces were filled with confusion, but before they could think any further, the countless void locusts quickly disappeared once again. It was as if nothing had happened. This caused everyone's faces to be filled with greetings. What happened? We can confirm that Chen Feiyang should be fine. Where are Principal Xiao and the others? Could they have been killed by Chen Feiyang? What kind of ability is this sudden disappearance and sudden appearance? This is simply inconceivable. Everyone was discussing in bewilderment. They did not understand what was going on. Is this the center of the eternal divine kingdom? What a powerful aura. Also, this divine kingdom is so big that it is even bigger than the Dragon Palace. When Guan Shuqing and the others entered the divine tomb, they were all surprised. Of course. This is the divine kingdom of the Mountain God Lord. Back then, the Mountain God Lord used his body to suppress everything. The eternal divine kingdom is naturally not the Dragon Palace. Chen Feiyang heard their exclamations and said proudly. However, before she could finish her words, she felt that something was wrong and immediately shut her mouth. "See if there are any items that can be moved into the Dragon Palace. Move all the useful things over." Guan Shuqing looked around and said indifferently, Yes. Where is the medicinal garden of your eternal divine kingdom? Take us to the medicinal garden. We will move the medicinal garden into the Dragon Palace." Lan Qingyu and the others nodded in agreement. Chen Feiyang opened his mouth and spat out some blood. His face was even more embarrassed than if he had eaten shit. However, his expression soon became even more unsightly. The group of girls had kept their word and emptied the entire medicinal garden. Other than all the valuable treasures in the medicinal garden, all of them had been removed. Chen Feiyang's heart was bleeding. Take these for the time being. Let's go. After all the valuable items had been taken away, Guan Shuqing and the rest said as they flew out. Chen Feiyang, Big Brother Shenfeng is still being suppressed by you at the entrance of Dragon Gate Academy. Come with us and let Big Brother Shenfeng out. Liu Mengxin said to Chen Feiyang and called him over. He nodded in resignation. Now that his life was in the hands of others, he did not dare to disagree. Buzz. When they arrived above Dragon Gate Academy, Chen Feiyang waved his arm, and the five-finger mountain that was suppressing Shenfeng instantly dissipated. What's going on? Chen Feiyang is actually standing together with Ding Xiao and the others? What the hell is going on? Did Chen Feiyang subdue Ding Xiao and the others, or what? Around them, some people who had not yet left saw Chen Feiyang and Xiao Ran's group suddenly appear in the sky, and their faces were filled with astonishment. Especially when they saw Xiao Ran and Chen Feiyang standing together so peacefully. Xiao Ran, he. Shenfeng broke free from the mountain and immediately flew into the sky. He stared at Chen Feiyang vigilantly with an awkward expression. He has already been. Haha, I have already shaken hands with Xiao Ran and the others. Now that Earth is heading to the boundless starfield, we have to plan for the next few things. In the future, I am prepared to live in peace with him. I, Chen Feiyang, have obtained the inheritance of the Eternal Master. In the future, I will be the Eternal God Lord who will suppress an entire region. Now that I think about it, suppressing a small Earth is meaningless. Xiao Ran was about to open his mouth to speak, but before he could finish, Chen Feiyang, who was by his side, immediately interrupted him. His voice that was filled with pride resounded throughout the entire sky, as if he was afraid that others would not hear it. Shameless. When Liu Mengxin heard his words, a disdainful expression appeared on her face as she said disdainfully. The corners of Xiao Ran and Tian Yuan's mouths twitched. They had not realized that this fellow was actually so shameless. However, they did not interrupt him. No matter what, Chen Feiyang had the strength to ignite the 7 wisps of divine fire. He had a special constitution, and his strength was incomparably terrifying. If they hadn't been suppressed by the space beast of the Dragon Queen, they would have been in trouble. Shake hands to make peace. Didn't he say he was going to take over the sky? Why did he shake hands to make peace all of a sudden? I don't know. Maybe it was because of some reasons that they didn't continue fighting. Or maybe the Dragon Palace has the same strength as him, which made them afraid. This is very likely. The Dragon Palace's strength should not be weaker than the Eternal Godlord's successor, that's why they didn't continue fighting. When the surrounding people heard Chen Feiyang's words, their faces revealed contemplative expressions as they discussed. This was the only possibility for the current situation. Otherwise, how could they explain Chen Feiyang shaking hands with Xiao Ran and the others to make peace? When Chen Feiyang heard the discussion below, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He did not want his voice domain to be destroyed in an instant. He was the inheritor of the Eternal God Lord. If others knew that he was being controlled, how embarrassing would that be? He had finally obtained such a rare opportunity to become an expert. He still had to maintain his face. Compete. Liu Mengxin saw the corner of his mouth curling up slightly and could not help but let out a soft snort once again. Hee. When Chen Feiyang heard her voice, he smiled and turned to look at Liu Mengxin. That. Miss Liu Mengxin, do you have time to have a meal together? He said to Liu Mengxin with a smile on his face. Originally, Liu Mengxin was a goddess-level existence to her, and he had already made up his mind to take her into his pocket. But now that there was a huge accident, he couldn't take her in an overbearing manner, but he could pursue it. Moreover, he had already thought of something along the way. Liu Mengxin was the disciple of one of the Dragon King's wives, and the one who controlled his life and death was the other wife of the Dragon King. She was also Liu Mengxin's teacher's good sister. Now, only by gaining a relationship with the Dragon King could his little life be 100% guaranteed. And if he wanted to have a relationship with the Dragon King, he could only start with Xiao Ran and Liu Mengxin. This was good. He made up his mind and began to pursue Liu Mengxin. This way, not only would he be able to obtain beautiful women, but his little life would also be better guaranteed. You get lost. Liu Mengxin's face turned red as she said fiercely to him, Hehe, I still have some treasures here that can help Goddess Mengxian ignite the divine fire. Chen Feiyang said as he took out some treasures from his body and handed them over with a smile. Liu Mengxin's face was flushed red. She was slightly stunned when she saw the precious treasures. Good, you actually still have some treasures on you. Chapter 2015. 2015 I returned in 2015. Cough, cough, cough. I hid some treasures in the end. Now, I'll give them to Goddess Mengxian. Chen Feiyang raised his eyebrows, coughed, and said with a smile. He had the body of a mountain and could store items in his body. Although most of the treasures in the god tomb had been taken away by the group of women, he still had some treasures in his hands. These treasures were enough for Liu Mengxian to ignite the divine fire. I'll take it for my sister. There's no need to eat. We still have things to do, Xiao Ran said as he directly took the items in Chen Feiyang's hands and said faintly to him. Then, he gestured to Liu Mengxian and the others, and the group immediately left. This, Sai. At least leave a contact number. When Chen Feiyang saw this scene, his face turned black, and he immediately shouted. However, Xiao Ran, Liu Mengxian, and the rest ignored him and flew into the distance. Forget it, let's take it slow. Chen Feiyang's expression changed, and a hint of bitterness appeared on his face. If it wasn't for that space beast, the sky would be under his control now, and he could do whatever he wanted. Now. Hey, what's going on? Chen Feiyang seems to be pursuing Goddess Liu Mengxian. It's true. Is this the reason why Chen Feiyang didn't make an enemy of the Dragon Palace? This. A hero can't defeat a beauty. Chen Feiyang actually wants to pursue Ding Xiao's sister. The people below were stunned when they saw this scene. They didn't expect such a thing to happen. The inheritor of the North Pole tomb, Chen Feiyang, has made peace with the Dragon Palace in order to prepare for the arrival of Earth in the boundless star field in the future. A hero can't overcome a beauty. The inheritor of the eternal God Lord didn't make an enemy of the Dragon Palace because he pursued Ding Xiao's sister. How terrifying is God Chen Feiyang's strength? It is known that he caused the space locust disaster last time. Now, he has at least a few billion space locusts. Is he able to contend with the Dragon Palace? Chen Feiyang has at least the strength of the Dragon Palace. Otherwise, he wouldn't have ended so peacefully. He has billions of space locusts. This is too terrifying. Is this the power of the inheritance of the eternal God Lord? The Dragon King and the Dragon Palace are already heaven-defying. I didn't expect Chen Feiyang to be even more terrifying. News of what happened today quickly spread on the internet. In the North Pole graveyard, the appearance of the inheritor of the eternal God Lord and the space locusts that blotted out the sky reappear. In particular, Chen Feiyang's terrifying strength and the battle that almost happened with the Dragon Palace shocked everyone. This time, even if Chen Feiyang didn't show his true strength, just the space locusts that blotted out the sky had a basic concept in their mind. To be able to match the Dragon Palace, not bad, not bad. However, at this moment, the person that countless people were discussing on the internet was sitting in front of the computer and posting non-stop. When he saw that the post that was comparable to the Dragon Palace and the Dragon King was pushed up, the corner of Chen Feiyang's mouth curled up slightly, and a trace of satisfaction appeared on his face. There was nothing he could do. After all, a year ago, Chen Feiyang was still a small figure, and some vanity and the mentality of a loser couldn't be changed. Today, he was still trying to gain face for himself, even if it was not in accordance with the fact. He browsed through the posts he had posted. There were a few thousand of them. After he browsed through them with satisfaction, he turned off his computer. Next, I have to think of a way to catch up with Liu Mengxian. I, the successor of the eternal God Lord, am really miserable. Chen Feiyang's mouth twitched. In the next few days, everything returned to normal. However, in these few days, Dragon Gate Academy had an additional figure that attracted everyone's attention. It was Chen Feiyang, the heir of the eternal God Lord of the North Pole Godly Tomb. The students of Dragon Gate Academy could often see Chen Feiyang sticking by the side of their vice principal Liu Mengxian every day. They didn't dare to ask, and they didn't dare to say. After all, this was a top-notch expert with monstrous strength. His strength was probably the highest in the entire earth. The opportunity left behind by this eternal god is indeed very terrifying. At this moment, in the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian looked at the resources that Lan Qingyu and the rest brought back with a shocked expression. Just the godly state-level spiritual herbs alone had reached more than 100 stalks. There were all kinds of metal information and godly state-level elixirs. There was even a huge pile of them. These resources were enough for Wang Xian to level up. This should be considered a small amount. During the war hundreds of thousands of years ago, the mountain god must have used up a lot of resources. Otherwise, the treasures of a god lord wouldn't be so small. Hua Saya, who was sitting at the side, stared at the treasures in front of her with a twinkle in her eyes. How is it, Xiaoxian? We've just arrived and we've already obtained so many resources. It should be enough for you to level up. Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingyu, and the rest glanced at Hua and Sia who were at the side. They raised their heads slightly and said to Wang Xian, "It's enough." Wang Xian nodded and said while licking his face, "My wives are awesome." Chimpate. When Guan Shuqing and the rest saw him like this, they snorted softly. "Oh right, how is the inheritor of the eternal god doing now?" If Ao Crab or the Dragon Palace were to devour the Eternal Kingdom, they would be of great use. Wang Xian continued to ask them with a smile. If the Dragon Palace was to be upgraded again, it would need to devour 9 Eternal Kingdoms. Furthermore, if he was able to devour an Eternal Kingdom, his strength would definitely be greatly enhanced. Chen Feiyang is now under my control. He didn't hurt Xiao Ran, Liu Mengxian, and the rest, nor did he have the intention to kill them. We didn't kill him, Lan Qingyu said to Wang Xian. That guy seems to be pursuing Mengxian now. He's also a shameless person. Son Lingxiu said with a smile. Sister Lingxiu, what do you mean he's also a shameless person? Is there anyone else? I don't know about shameless people, but there should be a pervert. After Son Lingxiu finished her sentence, a few girls suddenly took over the conversation and started mocking her. I'll go and raise my level first. The corner of Wang Xian's mouth twitched. He immediately walked to the side. He could sense pairs of eyes staring at him. Time passed slowly. As Earth traveled through the chaotic starfield in the void, they encountered trouble one after another. However, this time, without the Dragon Palace's help, Chen Feiyang could easily take care of him. This also allowed everyone to witness the terrifying strength of the inheritor of the eternal God Lord. A meteorite about the size of Earth was directly shattered by Chen Feiyang. The terrifying strength shocked everyone. While the Earth was peaceful, in the South Pole graveyard, Sui Yang was kneeling in front of a radiant divine tiger with burning eyes. I've finally recovered 10% of my strength, but I've used up all my resources. It's time to go out.